Good evening and welcome to the Star Insurance Specialist Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship, brought to you live from LPL Studios in the heart of Auckland City here at the Sky Tower itself. My name is Matt Ross and I have got Simon Chapman and Brendan White. Come on, guys. I know who you are. We're back here in week 3. Guys, how are we feeling about the races coming up?
I'm feeling excited. Last week we saw some really good racing finally. So what that means is this week we've got shorter tracks and tight-knit racing is going to come. You know, the first race last week we saw good battles. So tonight it's going to spell for something good.
Yeah,
Simon?
and for yourself?
Yeah, last time it was really some epic racing. I think that finish between Scott McQueen and Josh Ritchie was the highlight for me. That's the sort of stuff you look for in real world racing. So it was really neat to see those guys have such a tight finish there at Imola.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite ones to watch as well during week 2. And before we get into some of the highlights from week 2, if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, hey man, I really want a copy of this game, head over to Twitter and tweet us at Let's Play Live HQ with the hashtag ProjectCars2NZ and tell us if you could see any track in the world live, where would you go? And so make sure you get on Twitter and earn yourself a copy of the game by telling us that. Guys, I mean, what track would you choose? And you're not allowed to choose anywhere in New Zealand.
You put me on the spot.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, you can pick somewhere in New Zealand.
Bathurst. Yeah, I've never done Bathurst, so I'd have to say Bathurst. Just the atmosphere.
Cool. And Simon?
Yeah, Bathurst is a great place. I actually went a couple of times last year, so it's a really cool place. But
look at you.
For me, Macau Grand Prix, the streets of Macau next to Hong Kong. I want to go there later this year, actually, so that'd be real cool for me to go to Macau.
All right. Well, I'm going to say Nuremberg Ring, and let's take a look at the highlights from last week as well, where of course we had some pretty fantastic tracks and even more fantastic crashes.
That's right. Well, it was all about Jordan Penny again. But once Jordan Penny got that clean air, it was all about just a weeny bit further down the track. McQueen, Ritchie, Moore, they had some epic battles like you can see right on screen now. It was down there that we really saw some really great racing finally coming into this championship.
Yeah, Scott McQueen put in a really good charge, and then we saw Ritchie just make a really rookie mistake there midway through the race, bang on halfway. It was looking like it was going to be maybe a Ritchie in second place behind Penny, but then Josh, he put in a really hard charge towards the end there to catch up to Scott McQueen. And again, as I talked about earlier, that photo finish, as we're going to see now, just by the slightest of margins, Ritchie getting the advantage over McQueen at the end of it all.
Yeah, and then of course the second track we checked out was the Monza Grand Prix, and this time we turned off the lights, put the races in the darkness, and well, we all know how that went.
Yeah, it was an epic first start to the race. As you can see here, they were really wide, and then boom.
The massive crash there involving Ethan Moore. Ethan Moore was our pole sitter, but he encountered a lot of troubles throughout the race. Fought back, and then, unfortunately, as we'll see in a moment, had a wee spin there at the end of the race. Jordan Penny obviously dominating, 2 seconds out in front by about lap 3. Ethan Moore there, as we see on track, just making that one mistake and nearly took out McQueen on lap 6 of 14. Fortunately, though, for Jordan Penny, he came across the line well and truly ahead of second place, Robert Northway in second, and Josh Ritchie in P3.
And you can see here is how the points came out from the week 2 races. Jordan Penny winning the 2 tracks there. They're earning himself 50 points. Josh Ritchie just up the rear with 36 points. And Robert Northway still sliding in with a respectable 24 points from week 2.
Yeah, and as we flip over here, here's your driver championship standings for the Star Insurance Specialist Project Cars 2. And of course, it's Penny out front, but watch out for Josh Ritchie tonight. Robert Northway, Scott McQueen there. And of course, those guys that love those little battles, even more, Michael Robinson. I really hope my favorite Filipino is going to step up tonight. We never know. And Jake down the bottom, rounding out your championship standings.
And I just want to point out as well, the fastest lap actually earns you a point, a single championship point. It does add up. So if you are getting that pretty consistently, getting the Star Insurance fastest lap of the race, which Robert Northway, 3 out of 4 races, he's earned that fastest lap. So one of the most consistent hot lap races will always get a massive, fantastic time, world leading in some cases.
Definitely.
But unfortunately, as you can see on the leaderboard, is that he's still sitting in 3rd.
I don't know what it is. He said to me tonight, he goes, I don't know what's going on. I'm usually amazing. I come into these studios and I just lose it. But he says he's watched the replays and he's upset with his results, but he knows he's better. And he's going to be definitely one to watch because if you check out online, he's got world, what were you saying, Simon? IndyCar. He's like the world or the second fastest in the world on that track.
Yeah, definitely. Robert's obviously got 1 lap pace. We can see that. I believe he's the second fastest in the world on Brands Hatch Indy that we're going to be racing at tonight. But maybe he just hasn't got that in-race preparation, just doesn't quite know how to mix it in a field of 8 drivers. But, you know, maybe tonight's his night. We'll see. It's a circuit that he's proven that he's quick on. Obviously, in the qualifiers, he was up the top there. So, yeah, I guess these next 2 races will be pretty telling, I think, for Robert in his campaign this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of the next 2 races, let's actually take a look at where they'll be going. And of course, you mentioned Brands Hatch Indy. They'll also be traveling to Alton Park as well. Important to note is that Brands Hatch Indy was the track that the races qualified on. So very, very comfortable on that. Of course, it's going to be a little bit different tonight. We'll get to that soon. But again, they should feel a little bit at home here. Anything that's going to stand out on these tracks for us tonight, guys?
I think the biggest thing for these guys this weekend is that the circuit's obviously quite different in terms of the length. Brands Hatch Indy has only got something like 6 corners. You know, it's not a long circuit by any means. So these guys have really got to ace that lap after lap, especially in qualifying. Brands Hatch, perhaps it's going to be a little bit easier in qualifying because you've got more opportunities because the lap is obviously only about 50 seconds long. Alton Park, though, it's a longer lap. There's more room for mistakes. So you've got to be really conscious of that.
All right, well, we'll get into that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but let's also take a look at the car that the racers will be driving in tonight, the beautiful Ginetta G55 GT4. Let's take a look at it in a beautiful Star Insurance Specialist livery.
So here we go, the Ginetta G55 GT4, a top speed of 266 kilometers an hour, rear-wheel drive, getting to 100 kilometers an hour in just 4.3 seconds. 350 horsepower, weighing at just over a ton. This car is really special. It's got a lot of downforce on that rear wing and on that front wing and underneath the body. It's a car that you can really hustle through the corners, and I think tonight we'll see these guys perhaps trying to tame the beast that is this Ginetta.
It's going to be a real interesting environment to tame the beast as well. Speaking of interesting environments, guys, of course, you remember all the races we've had down at Hampton Downs earlier in the last few weeks. We've got a few more races. Conditions are a little bit different at Hampton Downs this time. So let's take a look at our first featured racer, Scott McQueen, and see how he went.
Hey, my name is Scott McQueen. I'm a welder fabricator from Tauranga. My first ever racing game was Need for Speed 2. It was on PC, and I think I was about 8 years old at the time. And I used to play that with my cousin, sharing the keyboard.
3, 2, 1, go!
I first started sim racing about 3 months ago. I first got a wheel to get into drifting on computers, and from there I moved on into circuit racing. The best thing about racing games to me is you get that same feel and adrenaline from actual racing, but you get to do it on a much cheaper budget. My biggest strength is definitely my background in competitive drifting. I'm really comfortable driving close with other drivers and can sort of operate pretty well under the pressure that you need to. I'm pretty new to project cars too, so I'm enjoying the time I've spent with it so far. It's pretty thrilling. I love the dynamic weather. That's definitely a ton of fun, and it's going to make for some interesting races.
Oh, just narrowly misses making contact with it. Looks like McQueen, he's got a hustle.
I'm here at Hampton Downs. I'm about to go go-karting. It's pretty wet out there, so we'll see how we go. My plan going into the hot lap is just to have fun. It's pretty wet, so I'm just going to slide the kart around and enjoy it. Hot lap, I got pretty soaked. It was a pretty big puddle that I seem to enjoy a lot. And I spun out a few times, just trying a bit hard into the corners.
Oh, nice.
And there you have it. Scott Lightning McQueen, ka-chow, trying to channel his inner Cars movie himself, trying to make it all the way up that leaderboard to challenge the top dogs. We'll see how he's going to go tonight. We do have him on standby to see how he's feeling before the big race.
Currently in 4th position with points close at the end of week 3. Do you see yourself climbing up the ladder by the end of tonight?
Probably not. I'm not the best in the wet, so a little bit of luck maybe, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, well, talking about the wet weather conditions, of course, we've introduced the pit stops this week. So have you got a pit stop plan in place going into this race?
It definitely depends on how the race goes and where I am sitting in the leaderboard. If I'm at the back, then it might be best to pit early, but if I'm at the front, it might be better to stay out with Jordan and see how we go.
So what are you looking to improve on going into this first leg of the UK Tour?
Definitely trying to keep up with Jordan. I know I have the pace to do it. It's just a matter of not making the mistakes and not letting them get away.
Well, good luck and have a good race.
Well, see, he says he doesn't feel like he's that good, but then in the next sentence he says, I want to keep up with Jordan Penne. You've got to be good to do that one.
Well, you've got to give it to Scott. Now, this is a kid that bought the game 3 weeks before the championship, hadn't driven it, he qualified, and he's up the pointy end of the leaderboard. You know, he likes a bit of motor racing, likes a bit of drifting, and he's doing pretty good, and he's really good at battling. So he's didn't do so well at Hampton Downs, but it's great to see them having a go at go-karting too.
It's a little unfair, though. He's in pretty wet weather.
Yes, that is true. And we're going to see one thing I just heard them say, pit stops. That's something new. We haven't seen that before.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
This is a new strategy.
See how it turns out in the race as well. I mean, it's like you said, it's going to be really interesting, very different to the last few tracks. We'll see how it turns out for the guys. So yeah, I think Scott McQueen, sitting in that 4th place position, does want to try and shoot his way up into that top 3. Of course, you don't get any money if you don't get at least 3rd place. So trying to break into that $10,000 prize pool. So we'll see how he goes later on in the night, everyone. However, we do have another featured racer who was down at Hampton Downs. I feel like this guy cheated a little bit by getting the different weather, but we'll see how Michael Robinson went down at Hampton Downs.
Hi, my name is Michael Robinson. I'm from Tararoo and I'm a process operator in a dairy factory. My first ever racing game was Gran Turismo 2. It was on PS1. Used to love playing that game. Used to get real excited winning all the expensive cars on the same track again and again and again. Started sim racing probably 4 days before the end of the qualifiers. I've played a bit of drifting online, but never proper racing. My biggest strength is probably not too fussed about where I place in the championship. I'm just going in to have fun, so I can just come in and send it. My biggest weakness going into the championship is I'm probably one of the most inexperienced racers, but hey, that's all right. My plan going into the championship is to just have some fun, try to keep up with guys and not come last place. Here at Hampton Downs, about to jump on the go-karts, see if I can set the quickest lap I can. I'm not too bad at go-karting. I think I might be able to pick it with the best of the boys here. My plan for the hot lap is just go in full throttle and just send it. I didn't do too bad in the hot lap. I think I might be right up there with the top of them. I'm not going to be too well in the sim racing, so hopefully I can gain back some ground here at the track.
Michael Robinson, the man who just wants to have fun and not come in last place. We'll see if he can do just that in the race tonight, but let's see how he is feeling before his own big race.
So tonight we started on Brands Hatch Indy, which was the qualifier circuit that got you into the top 8. So how do you fare going on the circuit?
Feeling a little bit better than I did last week. I know in practice I'm keeping up with all the top guys this time. It'll just be whether or not what happens with the rain.
who spins out, and yeah.
Yeah, well, with that wet weather forecast, of course, how do you feel for these races tonight? Like, how are you going to prepare going in?
This week, actually, I'm feeling a lot more confident in the rain. I like the rain a bit more than the dry. I can actually keep up with the other guys.
Oh, fair enough. You're currently in 6th place, and it's still an early game of week 3 of 8, of course. Do you have your sights set on 1st place in this tournament? And tell us how you plan to deal with Jordan Penne, who, of course, has won all the races so far.
First place, though, I'm not really too bothered in getting on first place. I'd be happy with around mid-pack, considering I'm not really much of a sim racer. But to deal with them, I think I'm just going to have to give them a bit of a tap every now and then, I think, if I can get near them.
Well, thanks for that, and good luck with the races.
I feel like that might be on the mind of some of the racers, just giving Jordan Penne a little bit of a tap, send his chances of getting first again into the gutter. I mean, it was spoiled a little bit. Yes, guys, we're going to have some wet weather in the rain, in the tracks tonight, but we'll get into the specifics of that once we actually get to the track itself. However, Michael Robinson, he's not aiming for that first place. He just wants to get up to that middle of the pack. I mean, how realistic is it coming into tonight?
You know, it's realistic. This guy is he's consistent and he wants to be up there. He said to me earlier on in the night, look, I really want 1, 2, or 3, and if he's happy with 3rd, it means he can take his missus on the honeymoon. And that's what he was about. So I thought there's a bit of an moment. But, you know, consistency is key in this championship. We're in a championship fight. They're all next door playing, well, practicing. The last 5 minutes, though, they've all been playing smash cars because they all feel real confident in the rain. Strategy is key. Tonight we see pit stops, who's going to go in, who's not going to go in. So that's a really important factor that we're watching for, and this championship's going to keep changing. You know, we saw night last time, we saw wet and pit stops this time. What's next week? Well, tonight's going to be interesting for the drivers.
And we will get to that in a second, but let's take a look at the Hampton Downs leaderboard, of course, because they weren't just there for fun, they were competing. And let's see how they went. Michael Robinson, like I said, first place with his sunny day conditions, a 3-second lead.
Yeah, well, it's good for Jordan Penne, though. It's showing a bit of skill there, 34 seconds. Jake Parker, 34. You know, Josh Ritchie. And you can see someone I thought would be a bit high would be Louis, you know, our favourite Filipino. He's done a lot of racing before and he's done a lot of karting. And Scott McQueen, you know, pretty good for the Hampton Downs Star Insurance leaderboard there. But Robinson's the one to beat purely because he's got that dry weather. But great to see Hampton Downs hooking it up and letting these guys go for a bit of a taste of racing.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity, especially I'm really jealous of Scott McQueen. I would have loved to race around Hampton Downs in the absolute, like, wettest weather. Yeah, how good would that be?
Yeah, it's good fun in the dry. It's good fun in the wet. You know, it's quite a fun circuit that's quite high speed. So yeah, it'd be great to have a wee blat around there, I'm sure.
Yeah, amazing. So, guys, we're going to go to a short break. But first, make sure you jump onto Twitter with the hashtag ProjectCars2NZ. Tweet at Let's Play Live HQ and tell us, if you could go to any racetrack in the world, where would you go? And you're going to be able to see a few of those tonight. But if you want to earn a copy of the game, thanks to Bandai Namco for PS4, make sure you get onto the old Twitter. So, otherwise, guys, we're going to be back in a few short minutes. Make sure you stick with us, and we'll get right into the race.
Like us, you're passionate about cars. At Star Insurance Specialist, we create custom policies for Kiwis with exceptional vehicles. If you own a vintage, classic, performance, project or prestige car, your needs don't fit neatly into a box. We think special and unique cars deserve special and unique insurance. We don't let robots determine policy or price. Get on the road with a custom policy from Star Insurance Specialists. Go to starinsure.co.nz today.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking through that break. You're joining us for the Star Insurance Specialist Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship. My name is Matt Ross, and I've got Simon Wyatt and Brendan Chapman. Got you guys.
Nice.
Just swap it around a little bit, and it'll work out. I don't know why I mix your names up so often, but anyway, guys, we're back here. We're about to jump into the qualifying laps, but before we do, guys, I just want to ask you one simple question. If you have to pick one racer to look out for tonight, who's going to jump out at you the most?
Well, Jordan Penny's the safe bet, guys, but I think it's that world leader. You've got to look out for him. But I'm really rooting for Louis. I really hope Louis has some good ones here. He's had a bit of a harsh race. He's got into this 8. There's 8 races out here. They've all qualified, so go Louis. I'm Team Louis tonight.
Brendan, I asked you to pick one racer. How many did you pick? 3? Come on, man. All right, so one racer.
Robert Northway.
Okay, good. That's good enough for me. I'm going to pick Josh Ritchie. I'm not going to say anyone else because it's only one racer. Josh Ritchie, he's impressed me the most, and I think if anyone's going to take down Jordan Penner, it's going to be him. However, it's a monumental task, but with the weather conditions tonight, I think we can do it. So without any further ado, I think we should check out the qualifying laps because, of course, the racers have some amount of time to qualify to decide where they're going to stand in the grid at the start of the race.
So this is the interesting part that we're finding as a new element of the competition tonight. It's wet. It's very wet. And this is something that these guys are going to have to adapt to very quickly because they haven't raced in the wet before. All their qualifying sessions will have been done in the dry, and it'll be the first time they've ever raced in the wet. Hopefully these guys have maybe done a little bit of league racing, a bit of AI racing at home and have prepped and seen what it's like to race around these circuits in the wet against other competitors, because the last thing that you want is to be going out there in the wet and not knowing what it's going to be like with other cars around you.
Well, that's the great thing, right? Because what you can do is, because it's an esport, you can jump in at pretty much any time you want. You can even set the weather to whenever you want. So they know they're coming into rain. They know they can practice on rain. They have the ability to do that. So it's one of the big advantages that you get over your real-world motorsport. So there are pros and cons to both sides of the story here.
One of the great, when I went next door and I looked at what the guys are doing, and they're actually talking me through, and the actual puddles actually disperse. So there's puddles on certain sections of the track, just like at Brands Hatch, I should say. And as the cars come through, they disperse the puddles. So there's a lot of hairpins that actually puddle up, and you've got to watch for that. And when we get 8 cars abreast, like you see down here on the left-hand side of your screen, when you get 8 cars abreast, you hit that, you're gone. You're off the track. And it's something that they've been learning really fast on as we go on board with Robert Northway. No surprise really though, that Penny is out in front at the moment. Early days now in qualifying, Robert Northway in second position there. Now Brand Hatch Indy, there's 2 tracks here, Simon. One's a short course, one's a long course. We're on the short course. It's a staple of the British motorsport. It's been there a long time. Tell us a few things about this track.
Only 6 turns, 1.9 kilometres, Brands Hatch Indy, I should say. And it's, as we see, Robert Northway is just going to retire to the pit lane there. Yeah, so this circuit is, I guess, an interesting one. It's one that has got a lot of history in British motor racing. We're on the shorter circuit tonight. Typically, when you race at Brands Hatch, you might race on the longer Grand Prix circuit, which actually hosted the Formula 1 Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, for the best part of 20 years. I believe the last time we raced there was in the mid-1980s. But this course, obviously the shorter one of the 2, a lot of history around this circuit, and you can probably tell us a little bit about that as well, Brendan.
Yeah, of course. Well, it is one of the shortest circuits. Thanks for chucking me into that one, Simon, in the United Kingdom. But it has got a lot of history. And the Ginetta, the car that we're seeing today, the Ginetta G55, this year in the British touring cars, the Ginetta GT4, they actually were beating everybody. So you can actually check it out on YouTube, the 2018 series. So the officials actually made them put weight in their car, and they actually made them up the car, and they're competing against the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the Aston Martins, the real top niche of the sport as we cut away from them spinning out on track. So this is a car that has a lot of history in this track as well. So it's definitely a fitting one, and it's the one that these boys qualified in as well. So they're all very familiar with it. They weren't familiar with the rain, as we see Penny and Norway still leading out there, but Richie, we're really seeing the top 4 consistently hold their spots. I went next door earlier and I said, hey, have you guys been practicing? And they all love to play it down. But, one was on here, I've been practicing a lot. So, it's going to be interesting to see who actually comes out on top. I said to Louis, look, I'll give you $50 if you take out Peter. He wasn't really interested, though, in that.
Yeah, I mean, how did he respond to that? I mean, at this point, you can almost say, like, I'll give everyone else $50 if Louis comes first. Yeah. Because unfortunately for him, Louis D. Manila is sitting down, I believe it's 7th place in the overall leaderboard. But he has had his fair share of last place finishes in the race. So I actually talked to him as well. And as we see Michael Robinson spin out a little bit, the dangers of the wet weather, talking to Louis. And he's had some of the least practice compared to all the other races. He said that his practice time has almost doubled.
Yeah, so I guess the key here is what you're seeing out on track at the moment is they're trying to push those speeds. And because they're trying to push the speeds, they're making mistakes, you know. And if we have Penny out front, and they all know it, if they get Penny out in front, they know the race is done. So they're all pushing it, and they're all making mistakes currently in the qualifying.
Yeah, and it's going to be really exciting as well. So seeing the grid, we'll get a look at where all the races are going to be positioned at the start of the race, see who gets that pole position. I believe it was Jordan Penne who sitting up there. Again, no surprises, but at the same time, it's not as much a surprise to see someone like Robert Northway take over that position because while Jordan Penne might be the most consistent, other races are definitely competing for that best hot lap time.
Yeah, well, Robert Northway actually has the second fastest pass on Brain Hatch in the world. And when we say in the world, we mean all races in the world. So he actually has the second fastest for Indy as well. And there's a lot of gamers out in the world. So that's really impressive to say that guy competing is actually one of the fastest in the world. And so, you know, all he's got to do is really get his I guess his head clear and race to the conditions. Because he's fast, he's just got to race with these guys in here. I reckon he's more of a competitor than Josh Ritchie for Penny.
Oh, well, is that 4 races now that you've brought up? But in any way, let's take a look at what the grid is going to look like based on the qualifying times here. So like we said, Jordan Penne will be sitting at the top in pole position. Robert Northway, one of the picks here on the desk, will be sitting in 2nd place. Josh Ritchie bringing up 3rd in the grid.
It's fascinating to see that the top 3 are separated by less than 1/10 of a second. 0.059 between Jordan Penne and Robert Northway. Robert obviously knows the circuit like the back of his hand, but the top 4 even only covered by 1/10. The circuit obviously being so short is really playing into these guys' hands, and I think as we head into the race shortly, we could well see a very, very close sort of race, and I don't think we're going to see Jordan Penne leg it like he did in the first 4 races.
Yeah, I reckon. And as well, I want to point out our 2 featured racers, Scott McQueen and Michael Robinson, 4th and 5th respectively. And I feel like for Michael Robinson, that's kind of where he wants to be. He wants to, again, just have fun, not get in that 8th place position. Scott McQueen, though, I feel like it's just slightly underneath his goals. Of course, he wants to get into that top 3 position, currently sitting 4th in the leaderboard. So we'll see if he can pull out ahead from the middle of the pack in the grid.
Well, it's a really interesting turn, this one, off the front straight as well. It's a bumpy front straight, but then you come into this big down right left-hand corner, and it's renowned in the UK for being one of the hardest corners of turn 1. So I think when you've got 8 cars, 8 racers who are standing by to go live, all coming into that one corner, and we're going to start with dry, are we, Matt? And then we're going to go to rain, or are we starting with rain?
We do get a bit of rain in the first track. It's going to be really exciting. It's not quite as rainy as our second track. So again, it's going to ramp up over the night. And as you can see, guys, races are on standby. We could be getting into the race at pretty much any second right now. So again, super excited to see how the start of this race comes up. Some very interesting turns that you were mentioning at the start. And of course, the wet weather. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the first race of the night at Brands Hatch Indy.
Right, we're live here from the Sky Tower, and these guys, 8 qualifiers from all over New Zealand, have competed, and we are going live at Brand Hatch Indy. And it's Jordan Penne off the grid as fast as possible, coming down into the turn.
Yeah, Jordan Penne, I mean, it's not too much of a surprise, so we'll see him continue. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are 7 races on the track currently, so there may be a restart, but we'll just cover it as it goes for now.
Yeah, the officials in the production suite may call it just like on a normal racetrack. You have false start, so the officials may go for a restart, and we are hearing it from what we would call race control, that they are going to go for a false start and a restart. So we're going to get that again. So that'll play into, I guess, the racer's hands, that Jordan Penne may not get that jump that he wanted.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. The races, of course, will reset. Again, another advantage of being an esport is that you can reset things very, very quickly with the touch of a button. And so instead of having to lug all these cars around, try and get it back into position, you just hit that restart button. So it makes it a lot easier for not just practicing, but just convenience of the race.
So obviously Jordan Penny's out in front, but it really means nothing at the moment while we're just going to wait for race control to get this race under control. We'll probably bring the red flag out, hopefully get this race restarted. We're just trying to pick up who didn't make the start. Looks like maybe Louis De Manila maybe missed the start.
He's in 7th, which isn't a really surprise for him, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm still rooting for him.
Is it Scott McQueen? No, he's down there in 6th place. Well, I don't think we need to consider too much who's not joining, because they will be there in the actual race.
It is Scott McQueen that is not in there at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well,
and look at Josh Ritchie. He is not happy.
I mean, that's another thing. You've got to have the emotions playing on your mind. You're sitting there thinking, something that wasn't my fault means I've got to reset now. I've got to waste a bit of my time. I was in the moment, ready to get out there and overtake Jordan Penne, and now you're sitting there just waiting. You're just waiting again.
He's a really emotional player, and he's the more I actually spend time with him, he's quite a character. He plays a lot of this, and he really wants to see, I guess, sim racing and this type of racing excel in New Zealand. So he's an ambassador for the sport, which is great to see. And you can see it when we watch him on screen. He's very passionate about it, which is great. Just like we see at the racetrack, these drivers are passionate and they don't want to lose. And this guy knows, as you know, there's $5,000 for first place on the line. You know, it's a lot of money, so I would invest my time and passion as well.
Oh, it's also bragging rights, because remember, Josh Ritchie competed in GT Sport last year and didn't have the most desirable outcome, right? He came 4th place, and he was expecting something like 3rd, 2nd, perhaps even 1st. And there was a bit of a mishap at the start of the race, and then his pit strategy failed. But the good news for him is this is now over 8 weeks. We're only into week 3. There is still, if my maths is correct, 12 races, including the one that we're just about to get into, for him to go through. So if there's a mistake on one track, it's not the best, but you can come back from it.
Now, something I want to talk about too is to watch who actually takes this pit strategy, because it's wet. Drivers will be weighing up the chance of, do they take the pit or do they not? Now, if you don't take the pit and you don't go in and get wets, you've got to run out there and dries in the wet, and they've got to weigh up the time being in the pits or the time struggling out on the track and dries. So there's going to be something to watch out for a bit later, definitely, and see what tactics they take. And I know Josh Ritchie was saying he ain't going in the pit.
Oh, really? All right. Well, we'll see what strategies all the racers take. We'll be back very shortly after a quick break as the racers get back into position.
Like us, you're passionate about cars. At Star Insurance Specialist, we create custom policies for Kiwis with exceptional vehicles. If you own a vintage, classic, performance, project or prestige car, your needs don't fit neatly into a box. We think special and unique cars deserve special and unique insurance. We don't let robots determine policy or price. Get on the road with a custom policy from Star Insurance Specialists. Go to starinsure.co.nz today.
Flavor, beats that move you.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking through that break with us while we sort out the race and get everyone back into position. We can't have a race without our own fastest car, Scott McQueen, can we, guys?
Well, he's your favourite, but yes, 20 laps, 8 races, but one winner. Will it be Jordan Penny? Are we going back to the race now, or are we going back to qualifying again?
Well, I'm reasonably sure we're getting back into the race, and yes, it has been confirmed. We'll be jumping back into it pretty much immediately as the races are just getting sorted out. And you can see, here we are, back in the grid. Let's go.
So it looks like we've actually maybe got a little bit of a mix-up on the grid here, maybe reverse things up a bit, and Louis de Manila is at the front now, and he's going to take the whole shot into turn 1, hopefully, and maybe can Richie get around the outside. We know that Louis doesn't quite have the overall race pace. Let's see as they head through turn 1 here at Brands Hatch.
Well, this is what we want to see, ladies and gentlemen, as you sit at home here. We're live at Sky Tower, the bottom of Sky Tower, and it's going to make things interesting. We were discussing whether we did a reverse grid later on in the championship, and we were saying someone's off. It looks like McQueen potentially off down the back there, but it's going to test Penny now. He's in number 7, and Louis de Manila, he is holding up the track, and he's good at one thing, and that's going to be blocking, because he's done a lot of racing and knows the importance of it. But we're going to see some good racing here as he's out in front. So what it's going to do is we're going to test the drivers, test those good drivers that we see in 1, 2, 3, 4 usually, to actually make their way through the field. 46 seconds it's usually on this track as they come down turn 1, and this is a really good passing opportunity as they come off turn 1. It doesn't really look like it in this game, but it's actually a really steep down gradient there, Simon.
Yeah, and actually there's a bit of history with this track in relation to New Zealand. The North Waikato, where Hampton Downs is based, turn 1 there is actually based off turn 1 at Brands Hatch. Obviously just a little bit wider there at Hampton Downs, but yeah, very similar in terms of the styling as we go on board here with Josh Ritchie, who is no doubt going to be hustling to get past Louis de Manila. I must say, on that start, it looked like Jordan Penny and Scott McQueen got together. So Jordan Penny caught up in his first little controversy perhaps. I know McQueen will not be happy about that. He's about 5 seconds back of the leader now as we see Josh Ritchie maybe coming under a little bit of pressure now from Robert Northway, who was made a bit of a good start there, actually, it looks like.
And this is actually way more interesting as well. Every other race we've had has been Jordan Penny miles ahead out at the start. Right now, it's Louis de Manila. Oh, he may actually get a bigger lead off of this.
Josh Ritchie and Michael Robinson are going to just fall a handful of positions now. Looks like they're down to about 4th and 5th, respectively. Josh Ritchie maybe down in P5 and Robinson back a place. And this is what we talk about. You know, you've got to be really careful on the circuit.
Now, Penny was just out wide. Now, I thought he was using the whole track, but he pushed really wide there. That's going to hurt him. Actually, that's a really interesting point to watch how much of the track Penny uses. He actually pushes the car right out wide and uses as much as possible, but he kind of just got it handed to himself there, jumped a few positions because they're off, you just mentioned.
Yeah, he's driving on the ragged edge. It's unfamiliar territory for Jordan. Jordan has been racing up the front since day dot. So for Jordan to be buried back in the pack here with 20 laps, he's going to have to take a bit of muscle perhaps to get past the guys like Ritchie in front of him, who's dropped back down to P4 now. So as we complete lap 4 of 20 here at Brands Hatch, it looks like Louis de Manila still somehow holding on to P1 with Robert Northway behind in P2.
Is someone actually paying these guys $50 each? Because he is sitting.
I think something happened in production there. Someone got paid off because Manila is out the front now. Interesting to see that. The two sort of front runners in the championship, Ritchie and Pine, are both from 4th and 5th, so we're going to see a really good battle there. But you've got to give it to the fastest Filipino. He's holding people off. He's doing a good block. A great thing to see here as well is the bumps, the characteristics that actually are in this track. As you watch the cars come through the front straight, you can actually see the bumps. It's actually really, in real life, quite a naturally bumpy track. So it's good to see the game picks up on a lot of these things. As Manila now gets a little bit of a love tap there from Northway. Remember, Northway, very good driver.
Yeah, well, he's got the 2nd place world record here, only pipped by about 1/100th of a second, which is maybe the length of a ruler, if that. So Louis de Manila doing a fantastic job to hold on to P1 here, coming under a lot of pressure from Robert Northway in P2. More just behind. It looks like Northway's going to try and slip it down the inside. The two make contact. They're rubbing doors. Manila just holds on to P1. Without penalties, these guys are going to be able to give each other a bit of hip and shoulder, it looks like.
Well, they were practicing that earlier on. When the rain came on, they were going the wrong way around the circuit. They were all very confident. Me, personally, I would have been practicing. But one person that's going to be trying to stay out of tussle and bustles is Moore because of that, last week he had that big crash and it hurt him. And he climbed his way all the way back up and then he spun himself back around. But look at Louis blocking, and on the brakes here, he's going to take a look down the inside, and he gets him. Is he going to be able to make a stick, or is someone from behind him? Is Ritchie going to get the pass? He's up into 3rd position. We've got 5 away, and Penne is still looking there. He's going to be the one to watch. He's the most consistent, but it is. He gets the pass, and now can that fast man keep the lead?
Well, we know that Robert Northway is quick around the circuit. He's proven that. He's got the world record, and it looks like Richie's going to try and slot it down the inside here at the final corner. Looks like maybe going to get the easy pass here on Louis Di Manila. I know that he'll be gutted because he said to me before we came on here, I've been practicing a lot. He spent the best part of 3 hours here on Brands Hatch Indy as we go side by side down into turn 1. Who's going to get the whole shot? Don't make contact like last time, Josh. And it looks like he's going to get that pass done cleanly. Manila just going to relinquish it, and maybe Moore can maybe take a look down here at the inside. And it looks like Manila's actually made a good comeback. He's done the up and under, and Richie's going to have to fight to keep on getting up to P2.
Something as well is that after that reset, Josh Ritchie, emotional racer, may be having a little bit of trouble. I'm missing the word here.
Getting back in the game.
Composing himself.
Yeah, so yes, composing himself. I guess this is a really short track, so it gives a lot of opportunity pass and I guess get yourself back up. If there's slow racing going on in the front because people are blocking, you can bring yourself back up into the grid and back up into position. But, Jordan Penne, I would expect to see more of him right now. So whether he's just staying back because you can see the argy-bargy going on up in front as they come down the front straight, who knows? But more, those gaps are closing. They are quite tight times as well. 47.3 for Norway on the front.
It's interesting to watch actually at the moment. These guys who are right up the front are really racing like it's the last lap. Penne is just biding his time. It's only lap 7 and he's just taken Moore off for
commentator's
P4.
curse, mate. He just took it out. He just passed Moore. So nice. And it was a calculated move there, but Moore's not giving up. Bit of a slippery sideways as they come through the back section of the track.
And look, it looks like that rain is starting to fall now. So this is where the strategy starts to come in. When do you pit? Do you take the undercut, get onto those wets quickly and get them up to temperature for when that rain finally starts to come? Or do you stay out on slicks for as long as possible? If I was them, I'd be staying out.
Well, they were all sort of talking about it, but neither were letting on what they were actually going to do. The only one that said to me that what he was really going to do, and whether he was actually just telling a fib or not, was Josh Rich. And he said he's not going to go in because the time to go in and change the tyres and then come back out is going to be too much. But another thing is that, Simon, one thing we discussed last week is the temperatures actually do go up in these tyres. And these guys were saying after 3 or 4 hot laps, the temperatures are right up there in those tyres and the PSI is right up and the dry tyres are gone.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things, though. When the rain comes down, it's going to cool the circuit. So you might get a little bit of an equalisation period. We're obviously halfway through this race. I know it takes about a lap to complete a pit stop. Whether or not it's worth going into the pit lane is perhaps up
McQueen has taken his pit, so he's in. We have someone else going in. Who is that? Is that Penne going in? Northway goes in. Richie goes in. They're all okay. So who we've got up the front there? Penne has not gone in. He's going to try to get some clean air. We've got Northway, Richie.
Yeah, Penne's just going to try and use a non-pit stop strategy. For now, he may go a bit later, but like you said, he's playing the long game. But maybe he's realized with his position at the start of this race, he can't afford to pit. He needs to take that risk.
I'm going to have a chat with Josh Ritchie because he told me he wasn't going in and he was one of the first ones to go in. So he's clearly just telling a few porkies there. So you can see now, is that Parker going off?
Looks like McQueen perhaps having a little bit of hip and shoulder there with Penne as we see Ethan Moore currently up in P2, just holding on as they go skating through the grass. McQueen's going to come out the outside and be the benefactor of it all. So this is one of those things that we talk about. Is it worth coming into the pit lane? I think now the track is wet enough that these guys are going to have to. Now, those guys who pitted on lap 1, or a lap earlier than these guys, I should say, they're going to get the undercut. They're already going to have the tyres up to temperature, and they're going to be able to cut some laps easily as. So we'll watch in the next 2 laps, see who comes out in front as we see Penne is currently out in the lead as he does his first pit stop. So Northway is the first one out on track of those guys who has done his pit stop. We've got to keep an eye on Northway. We'll stay with him as he comes onto the front straight shortly, and we'll see, does Penne come out ahead?
All right, so it's all about timing. For people that don't follow racing and they're more into the gaming side, Simon, it's all about timing, right? So you've got your big pit crew in there and they're trying to strategize when the best time is to come in on what lap. Is that sort of the nuts and bolts behind motor racing?
Yeah, so from the sounds of things, talking to the drivers, it takes basically exactly a lap to do a pit stop, as we see Robert Northway coming out in the lead and Manila actually slotting into P2. So those guys who stayed out that 1 extra lap, it looks like are really suffering now. Jordan Penne has dropped down to P6. So once the pit stop sequence cycles out, we'll see where these guys sort of end up, and it looks like Northway has got a pretty handy margin there over Di Manila in P2. Josh Ritchie down in P3 will have Robinson perhaps on his tail very shortly, and it looks like it's going to stay fairly wet out there. The circuit is thoroughly damp, and look at that, the delta already 3.7 seconds slower on the wet tyre. So this is what we're saying, you know, if you come in that lap earlier, you can get the undercut, you can make up some more time on the guys who gambled, stayed out onto the slick and just couldn't get the grip down. And we're seeing that. Northway was one of those first guys who came into the pit lane, and we can see someone like McQueen down in P7 now, who was one of the last guys to pit.
And now we're going to be able to see these puddles build up as well and how that plays in. And you can already see it's really slippery. They're really, as you push your inertia around those corners, you've got to be really careful. There's some puddles that actually I saw in practice with these guys. When they hit them, they flew off the track. That was it. So you can see the build up starting to happen here on the track. But clean air there for Northway. And the cool thing is with Northway is because he's so high up, all he's got to do now really is do those hot laps like he normally does.
And that's what he's best at, right? He's, in fact, world leading at these hot laps, specifically on this track as well. So big difference between now and previous races is he doesn't have to worry about track.
Richie just chucks away second. Manila, the Filipino. Good on him.
He's just nosed him.
I said I was
more drama potentially. Looks like Josh Ritchie's got a big hit in the side. He's going to drop all the way down to P6 now. Manila is going to hold on to P2, and it looks like Moore has moved up into P3. And we spoke about McQueen being down the order, and he's just gained a handful of positions up into P4 now. So the complexion of this race has been turned on its head.
Now let's see if we can get an onboard with Richie. I can guarantee his face will not be happy about that. Parker at the bottom.
He'll be absolutely
Michael Robinson
spewing
down the bottom there. Penne in 5th position. He won't be liking the position he's in at the moment. Concentration. He knows he's got a lot of work to do now. Unfortunately, how cool would it be if we could actually go on board with him right now and have a little chat?
I don't think it'd be cool for him.
It'd be really emotional for him.
But that's a handful of positions that he's lost now. He's down at P6. He was fighting for P2 there with Louis D. Manila, but he just, you know, in these tricky conditions, he made a simple mistake. If you're going to watch the replay on board here with Louis D. Manila, yeah, perhaps maybe just getting on one of those puddles, and it's just looped him around, and it only takes a fraction of a second, you know, going through that standing water to send these cars around.
Important thing is, Louis managed to recover from that fairly decently. In fact, he looked like he was one of the bigger victims from it, but recovery was there.
7 seconds behind at the moment, but it's, you know, I guess it's going to be one of the scenarios that we see with Penne where he gets that clean air. Robert Northway's got that at the moment, so right now it's going to be, that's Moore goes around, which that's going to give McQueen clean air, but right behind him on board right now, we're with the current championship leader, Jordan Penne, but it's anyone's game. There's spins going around all around the place here, so slight tap, and or even if you don't know where the puddles are, where the puddles sit in this track, that's a big one, right there on the left, as you saw. You hit that, you're done. So if you've spent the time and done your due diligence around testing around this track, you're going to know where to avoid them. As McQueen starts to get sideways as he comes up over the home straight.
All right, we are sitting at 3/4 of the way through the race. 20 laps, and we're already through 15 of them. And Robert Northway sitting so far ahead of everyone. But, ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Penne, that leader from the previous few races, really looking to earn his way up there and get some more points. He has recovered, though, I've got to say, from a pretty catastrophic event earlier on.
Right now, all I'm saying is I banked the right guy. I hope I don't do commentator's curse and the fastest Filipino lets me down.
We're not
but he's in
talk about
second.
my pick.
And I don't know if we can get an onboard with him, but he'll probably be smiling ear to ear right now if he knows he's in second. But Louis there, he's still 8 seconds down on the leader.
To be fair, Louis is always smiling. Like, even when that guy is 8th place, he's still got a big smile on his face.
All right, so no real good battles going on here, but everyone took the pit. So no one stayed out there. Clearly they saw straight away that they went in there, especially Josh Ritchie, who made it very apparent he wasn't going to take the pit, took the pit.
Well, I think it just got to the point there on the circuit where it's just too wet. You know, even if you were that lap ahead of everyone else, you just hemorrhaged so much time sitting on those slick tyres that would probably lose temperature and just be of no use to you here on a circuit like this where those puddles are starting to form. And it's got to be one of those things these drivers have got to be careful of too. If you drive through those puddles, you're going to feel them move the car around. We talk about feeling in video games. It's a bit of an odd concept in many ways. You know, you think about things like Call of Duty having feel in a gun. it's kind of like this in
It's the
that.
force feedback in the steering wheel we're talking about last week. You know, the drivers can control a few things in this game because a lot of it is set to default so that people can't get an unfair advantage. One of the things they control is the force feedback. Now, when we were having a go at it, you can actually feel the puddles give you a lot of resistance in that steering wheel.
Yeah, and you can feel it jerking your hands away. Like you'd be driving around the corner, hit a puddle, and your car suddenly veers off to the left or to the right. These guys, as you can see them heading out of turn 1, there are those puddles. They've got to avoid those. And when we get to Alton Park, where it sounds like we're going to have thunderstorm conditions, the puddles are even bigger. So you end up taking a line which isn't traditional because you've got to avoid those puddles and make sure that you don't hit them and end up aquaplaning like we saw Josh Ritchie do just moments before. As we go on board here with Jordan Penny sitting pretty in P4, it looks like a really good battle is starting to emerge here with just 3 laps to go.
Are we getting some lap traffic here? So we've got...
No, I think this is the battle for P2. So it looks like De Manila just up the order there perhaps, because Northway, as you look on the map on the top right of your screen, is just streaks out in front. So it looks like the top 3 are split by only maybe a couple of seconds. So we see Penny at P4, McQueen at P3, and Manila at P2.
We just lapped someone, so we just got some lap traffic there, but Penny did it nice and executed it real fluid. So we've got McQueen in front here sideways, and we've got Manila down there as well sideways. So, you know, Manila's doing really well. Old Louis is doing very well to keep it out there, keep it clean. He's just going to be textbook and he's doing it, but the battle. McQueen's going to be seeing this in his rear vision mirror, and you can see him. He's really pushing as hard as he can, and he's sideways. So hopefully this doesn't force a mistake from the championship leader, Penne, on the chase.
And this will be giving Louis the needed breathing space that he needs, because with McQueen defending...
And, you commentators curious. Louis chucks it away, takes out McQueen. McQueen takes out Penny. Oh, beautiful driving there from Penny. Avoids it. You should stop talking, Simon. You just... I'm Team Manila, I'm Team Louis, mate, and you just took out my driver. So it's all action here, live from SkyTel. We will get a replay of that, but Penne jumps to second. Louis, what are you doing, mate? You just let us down here. You're not getting that $50.
Well, he's still P3. He's managed to recover
there we go.
somehow.
There's the replay, just slippery.
Look at that.
Oh, that's an insane incident. I'm amazed that Louis actually managed to recover, because now we're seeing McQueen down in P5 behind Ritchie, and Ritchie has been the benefactor of all of this, getting up into P4 now. So we talked about those puddles. I've definitely caught a few of these guys out, but my man, Robert Northway, he's leading streaks about in front of this field at
well,
about
the leader's
10
your
seconds.
man now, isn't it? My man just got taken out. Commentators.
I don't
Oh,
think
we
you
go
can press him that
again.
hard.
Who was that?
Was that Ritchie that just spun?
Ritchie, he's dropped down. He's still below Louis de Manila.
Oh,
so
it looks like maybe one of those lap traffic cars might have just spun on his own there. And these puddles, man, they're just proving to be the killer out here at Brands Hatch.
One thing I was watching with the drivers is when I was having a go, it was really hard to get your car back on the track and get going again. But these guys have been practicing a lot in the wet. Manila has a bit of a slip and slide there. Is that Ritchie that takes him out on the inside? It is. So Ritchie picks up to third position. So you're seeing those front runners actually make their way back up to the top of the championship.
Oh, McQueen's going to go
back
around.
Consistency is key in this championship, and we're seeing it time and time again. Northway, Penny, Ritchie always coming up there.
But here we go. It looks like Robert Northway is going to come across the line any second now to take the win here. His first win here at Brands Hatch. He's going to flash the lights, come across the line and take victory here at Brands Hatch Indy. We'll look behind for Jordan Penne. A massive recovery from him considering where he started. He's going to come across the line any second now, take P2 and another handful of points. And Josh Ritchie will be wondering, man, they could have been so much better.
It's close behind them, but I don't think that this is going to change. Oh, no.
McQueen trying to chuck a Super 6 down the front straight here at Brands Hatch Indy, but no, not quite. The game stops him from doing so. What a race, ladies and gentlemen, live here from the Sky Tower. What a game to play. Project Cars 2, Brands Hatch, you got to have a go. Go get yourself a copy. What's your highlight of the race?
When it started raining. That was when things got a lot of fun. And honestly, the next track is all thunderstorms, so we get that right from the beginning. We'll get to that when we get to the next track, of course, Alton Park. But this Brands Hatch Indy, I've loved it because it's a short track, and so even if you do have these front runners who are miles ahead, like Jordan Penne, Robert Northway, they still have that traffic risk because you start lapping people.
You've got to give it up, I guess, to Louis. He started out in front. He had some biffs, but he still managed to climb that back up, and he was still consistent.
Yeah, definitely. Apart from that spin, obviously, which caught out a few of those drivers, and it looks like Robert Northway has just taken a handful, 25 points in fact, and we'll hopefully see that fastest lap come through soon too, and see who gets that extra point.
Yeah, first we can check out the leaderboard and see where things ended up, how many points people are going to be earning. Robert Northway, of course, up in that first place position for the first time in the Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship. Jordan Penne as well, first time. He hasn't been in first place, sitting in at second. Josh Ritchie caught up third place. Of course, everyone's favorite Filipino, Louis, in at fourth.
Scott McQueen rounding out in the fifth position. Jake Parker, no surprise down there, unfortunately. Parker, bit of a surprise for more. And Michael Robinson rounding it out for the first race here at Brands Hatch.
I think, yeah, bringing it back to what you said, Brendan, Louis' performance has actually been very good today. I mean, yes, he did end up with the pole position in the grid. Whatever happened there. But he held that lead for a long time. And even when the wet weather started to turn on, he still only slipped one, maybe two places. It took a pretty serious crash for him to slip out of that top position.
Yeah, I think consistency is key here. He said he's been going home and he's been practicing and he's been putting in the time. We said that last week. The people who put in the time, put in the consistency, put in the practice, seat time's key in any motorsport. They will be the ones that push through.
All right, we've got one of the racers standing by to see how he's feeling after the big race.
Hey, so congratulations on winning that race. Of course, the last 4 races you've raced, you actually got the fastest lap on, but you finally managed to take one out. How do you feel?
Oh, pretty stoked to finally not make any silly mistakes and keep the car on the track and, yeah, just stay out of trouble.
Yeah, well, you managed to get in front, like, quite early on in the race. Like, what was going through your head, like, staying in the front and trying to just keep that lead?
On the race, on the start with the second start, I ended up being put at the back, so I was just trying to survive. And then next thing I know, I was up to second and managed to get past Louis and get in the lead and end up pulling away.
Yeah, well, congratulations on managing to take out the first race. You're the only person now that's managed to take a win off of Jordan. Is there any last words you want to say before we end?
I just want to give a shout out to my my other half. It's her birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday, babe.
Awesome. Well, good luck in the next race and congratulations on the win.
Aww.
That's an aw moment, isn't it?
Aww.
He says it. He says if he wins this, he's going to take you on a romantic honeymoon.
That's like the viewer at home.
The viewer, his partner, we know he's watching. But how cool is that? It's his first time on TV and he's like, oh. So it was pretty cool.
I've got to say as well, I mean, his voice was kind of shaky, but in the good way, right? He feels like that's the voice of someone who's stoked to finally get the win that he deserves. Because Robert Northway, I mean, we talk about seat time, how much you're practicing. He puts in probably the most work out of a lot of these races up there, probably even more so than someone like Josh Ritchie. And the fact that he's finally got something to prove it is amazing for him. So I reckon he's got to be stoked for that one.
Well, he's got to be happy about the championship points too as well. And it's no disrespect to Penne, but it's cool to see 25 points on offer for that race. So Penne, I'm getting heard from race control too that he may have done the fastest lap. We'll find out soon, very shortly.
Yeah, there it is, 1:47.059. Jordan Penne, Star Insurance Specialist, fastest lap of the race. So he will earn one extra championship point. Normally I'd say, does he need it? But in this case, he might actually, because it's the first time he hasn't hit that first place finish. However, he's still second place, still got that championship point from the fastest lap. So he's definitely still at the front of the leaderboard. But again, I just want to bring it back to Robert Northway, the winner of that race. Again, and I mentioned this on the first broadcast as well, plays under THR eSports, was actually picked up just before qualifying for this event specifically. So I know they'll all be watching as well. And wants to prove his org that he is one of the top dogs in eSports motorsports. So that he's finally took out a win. I'm sure they'll all be stoked for him.
They'll all be chucking their hands in the air. And now, from this point on, we're going to go to a different track and a longer, a vaster track. And we may see the same front runners, but I'm still rooting for the fastest Filipino for that race as well.
I'm sure we all are. Big fan favorite at home. And if you are sitting at home and you want to earn a copy of the game, thanks to Bandai Namco, we've got a PS4 copy to give away. Jump onto Twitter, tweet at Let's Play Live HQ with the hashtag ProjectCars2NZ that you can see on your screen, and tell us if you could go to any racetrack in the world, where would you go? So make sure you get onto social media and earn yourselves a free copy of the game. But everyone, we'll be back with the second track not too far away as we go to a short break. We'll see you soon.
Like us, you're passionate about cars. At Star Insurance Specialist, we create custom policies for Kiwis with exceptional vehicles. If you own a vintage, classic, performance, project or prestige car, your needs don't fit neatly into a box. We think special and unique cars deserve special and unique insurance. We don't let robots determine policy or price. Get on the road with a custom policy from Star Insurance Specialists. Go to starinsure.co.nz today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking through the break with us. And we are now back live for the Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship, brought to you by Star Insurance Specialists. We're here in the LPL studio. My name is Matt Ross, and we've got two fantastic gentlemen. I'll let you introduce yourselves. I don't seem to do it too well.
I'm Simon Chapman.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. Two of the smartest guys in motorsports in the country here. Pleasure to have them here on board. And, guys, we've just seen a fantastic race on Brands Hatch Indy and a bit of wet weather and a few crashed cars.
Yeah, I've got to say that it's cool to see that the game's actually progressively stepping up and stepping these drivers into, I guess, an unknown realm. They're having to practice more because they're getting, last weekend it was a bit of night. This was dry then wet, so pit strategies came in. And now we're going to completely chuck it out the window and we're going to go complete thunderstorms and rain.
Because why not, right? Like, thunderstorms are just going to be so much better. We'll even take a look at the Logitech weather report and take a look at the track itself as well. Simon, do you want to take us through this one? Yeah,
so we're still in the UK, Alton Park, one of the legends of UK motor racing. 11 turns here. It's fast, it's flowing, but they've got to be super careful because the undulating nature of the circuit means that it is prone to a lot of puddles. So these guys have got to be keeping their wits about them, I guess, as they head around the circuit for what will be another 20 laps race.
That's right, 20 laps in this one as well. A little bit longer than Brands Hatch, but still 20 minutes, so it's going to test the driver's stamina for this as well, especially some of the racers who maybe took a bit of emotional damage in the first race as well. I mean, crashes happened, people didn't get the desired results, there was a reset, and now you've got to go through a whole other race, which has so many risks of crashing.
I think one to watch out for would be Scott McQueen because that was his reset. So his game, his mind will be in the game now. He'll be a lot more focused. Josh Ritchie, he had a bit of a upsy-daisy and a whoopsie-daisy, I should say, in that one. So he's going to be one to watch as well. But, you know, as those front runners, I'm still Team Manila. But Robert Northway, you know, world champion, watch out for him. We get to go to qualifying again. The drivers are getting ready. They are practicing at the moment. You can see there, on screen, Josh Ritchie, always so precise, so focused on the game, a bit emotional as well.
Yeah, of course. We can jump over to the qualifying now as well, see where they're all at. Because, of course, remember, we've got to check out that grid. We're not into the actual race just yet. And we'll also see a little bit of a taste of how the drivers will handle the conditions, the 11 corners, and, of course, all the fun puddles that come with it.
All right, so we go live here for the first look at the track.
Yeah, and it's wet. Are we surprised? Nope. But thunder. That'll light things up a little bit, as we'll see the first times coming through shortly. Currently keeping an eye on Robert Northway. And one of the things that you and I noticed, because we had a little bit of a fang around these tracks before we came on air, you don't want to be putting a wheel on the grass. And just as I say that, Robert does exactly what I said he shouldn't do. So what you've got to be careful of is placement of your car, because with so much water on the circuit, you don't want to be taking perhaps a traditional racing line. The traditional racing line is the most worn out section of the track. So
it's the best line.
Well, it's theoretically it's the best line, right? But because you go on that line, that's the most worn out section of the track, which means that water sits on top of it. It puddles a lot. If you go offline, there are little holes in the track where the water can sit, and there's more potential for you to get more grip. So you got to be careful. As we see them coming through turn 1, there's that massive puddle on the inside because there's quite a lot of camber. Again, on the run down to turn 2, there's a few puddles on either side of the circuit. So you probably don't want to be taking perhaps a traditional racing line, maybe an alternative racing line, which will get you through the corner, perhaps not as fast, but safely.
Now, there's some really fast footfall to the floor sections here, but there's some really tight, weird chicanes in this track, and I think we're going to see one right here as we come through. So real slow, big curves on the left and right, big puddle on the left there, so you don't want to cut the corner. You don't really want to do the racing line, as Simon's just been saying, and you don't want to apex it. In this track, you actually have a bit of camber, then like you said just before, it sits out quite flat. So in a dry race, you'd be sitting on that camber. You won't be wanting to get out on the top of that camber. But even in the wet, you're not wanting to do that either. But coming through happens like that. Look at that big puddle. So it's going to be an interesting race, especially when you get 8 cars. Hopefully we get a nice reverse grid again where Louis gets to go up front and get that advantage and holds the track up, and we see some blocking and some tactics coming into that.
All right, guys, I want to talk to you about the man on the screen right now. And just before I start my sentence, of course, he's not first place anymore, but he did hold the fastest lap so far. Richie just recently overtaking him. Now, we've seen Ethan Moore get pole position before from qualifying. Is he a standout driver to you, or is he just somewhere in the middle of the pack?
I think Ethan has the potential to be a front runner. We saw at Monza, he's definitely got the 1 lap pace, but unfortunately he didn't get to prove himself because of that lap 1 incident. So I think Ethan has got something to prove here. These conditions perhaps suiting him at the moment. He's only 3/10 behind Josh Ritchie, who currently leads the standings, as we see Jordan Pennant go to P2, demoting more down the order into P3. So I guess, yeah, I think Ethan is one of those guys who could be a little bit of a dark horse coming into Alton Park. Whether or not you can pull it off is another question, though. We're seeing this circuit is obviously double the length of Brands Hatch, so there's more opportunities to make mistakes. So I think Ethan, he's in a position where he can challenge, but he just needs to find consistency. Penne has found consistently from the outset, getting 4 wins straight in a row, but consistency over the duration of the competition is what you need.
All right, so some of those harsh corners, even more sliding it around, taking the full width of the track. Now, it's quite a tight track as well. It's not as wide as some as you see, go down to Hampton Downs in Auckland. It's 20 metres wide on turn 10, where here you've got, 5-10 metres max.
Yeah, it's, I guess, a very old school British racing circuit, as we see one of the cars just over here with Jordan Petty. Looks like maybe he's gone for a bit of a nosedive into the wall. The circuit has gone through quite a few sort of revisions. When it first started, it was basically just a big square with a few sort of kinks in between. Then we saw down at what is turn 2 now, that extension which takes you through that big sweeping left-hander into the right-handed here, and then the big uphill section. So the circuit is, it's interesting. It's not what you would say is a circuit which is really good for overtaking, but it can be in conditions like these, because it'll put these guys off their game a little bit. It'll send them out wide. If they hit those puddles, it's going to slow them down. And this is that fast left-hander I was talking about. You've got to ace that corner. It's not really a passing opportunity, but if you get a good exit out of here, you can maybe send it down the inside. And this is another section too, where if it does get heavier with this rain, we could see a lot of puddling down the inside of that cambered corner. So Josh Ritchie now currently sitting atop the order, 1/10 ahead of Jordan Penne in P2. Moore currently holding on to P3, and Robert Northway down in P4. It looks like passes as we see Ritchie. Maybe just a bit of gesticulation, maybe just trying to find a few more tenths that he can't at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got to give props to him as well. After how that first race went, he's come back in here, has managed to get, okay, don't curse him, okay, he's stabilized.
Good at that.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Now, just to say, he's impressed me so far. He's obviously got the fastest lap. He's come back in here with a bit of a fresh start. Yeah, he's still getting frustrated at a few of the corners, but that's just that racer. It's how he is.
This is another part of the circuit which is super tough, as we see Josh Ritchie completely miss the apex there. That double apex right-hander has been catching out a lot of these guys. Keep an eye on that part of the circuit when it comes to the race time. It's a good passing opportunity, but it's also a place where you can easily make a mistake. The first apex of that corner is basically blind. You're sighting it super, super late. And again, out of that final corner, there's 2 puddles which are basically covering both sides of the circuit, so there's one line only up onto the front straight. So as we see Scott McQueen go for a little bit of a drive out in the grass.
Yes, one of our featured racers there, Scott McQueen. You saw him earlier, the Tauranga local, had the game 3 weeks, jumped on in and likes a bit of drifting and wants to take it up himself. So as he comes into the hairpin, he's going to want to take a high line here, especially when it's going to puddle up potentially later, because once you hit that, you're going to be sideways. I guess he likes sideways, but you know, he's done very well in the lead up to the championship, trying to bank points, and he's sitting in the mid pack at the moment, which is good to see.
And that's about a little bit lower where he'd like to be. I mean, you can still sit back and say, like, hey, look, I'm still on TV racing and not last. But at the same time, you're not getting any prize money unless you're in that top 3. So it's really on McQueen to break that barrier, get into that top 3, into the likes of Penne, Northway, Josh Ritchie. And we've all said he can do it. He just needs to step it up consistently for one night.
It was interesting. I was watching the GT4 of Britain, of the UK recently online, the 2018 series, and this is a real, as you said earlier, Simon, it's an old track. It's, you know, it's one of those benchmark tracks, and as you look on the left and you look on the right, there's not a lot of runoff. So if you get it wrong here and you hit the wall, good for damage control isn't on. We're going to watch it. So you see here, you take this corner wrong, you're straight into the tyres. So you're going to potentially see a lot of banged up cars very shortly, as well as Penne leads it out, 151.50, but very a 0.2 of a second between him and Ritchie at the moment. It's very close in that top 4 currently.
Yeah, that's the closest margin we've seen. 0.02 of a second between Jordan Penne and Scott Ritchie in P2 there. So really super tight, and that's crazy to think that only 0.02 of a second, only a whisker can be set between these two. They're obviously super tightly competitive. So we're going to watch Michael Robinson now. Looks like he's got a bit of damage on his Genetta G55 GT4. And, you know, despite these cars having a lot of aerodynamic downforce, you've got to be going fast, obviously utilize that. In these conditions, it's a bit like an elephant walking on
you might
marbles.
as well just chuck it out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, these cars aren't really well suited to these conditions, and with the default setup, which is a loose setup, these cars are going to be all over the place. So we see Michael Robinson taking a really high line there through that big sweeping hairpin. Penne still ahead of Ritchie in P2, and I still can't get over just how close it is between first and second at the moment.
Now this track is, I guess, one to point out that the Genetta doesn't drive everywhere in the world. It's very, I guess, United Kingdom, British sort of based car. And in the GT classes, the GT4 that it runs, once again, it's very fast around the circuit within rail racing, if you guys check it out online. And once again, the officials actually penalise them because they think it's too fast, so they make it put more weight in it, or they may raise the height. Another thing to watch out on this track in real racing is they've actually got, as you come down on the left of certain parts of the section, they've got sensors, and I haven't seen this, you don't see this in New Zealand, but they've got pressure sensors on the side of the track. So if you cut too wide on the track, the concrete pressure sensor picks you up. Race control and the stewards will go, right, you're cutting the track, you've got to slow down, or you've got to let this person pass you. You see that a lot in motorsport, especially when you get big fields. Now, when you get big fields in a track like this, you'll actually see them gridding right back. You know, you get right back to down that dip that we just came off. You get a field of 30 cars, and if it's reverse grid, man, you've really got to do the work to get up the front pack. So if you don't follow motorsport, or you don't know what we're talking about, check it out online as we go for a little bit of a spin here with Michael Robinson. Our cameraman sorts his stuff out to try to find it.
Yeah, Michael Robinson's just highlighted a point which I wanted to touch on. Turn 1 has got a massive puddle on the inside. Now, when it comes to the actual race, of course, that puddle's still going to be there.
Correct.
We've watched these guys go into corners 3 wide at times. Whoever's going to be stuck down the inside is potentially going to be finding himself facing the wrong way when he comes out of the exit of turn 1. You don't want to be taking the traditional racing line into turn 1 because you're just going to end up facing the wrong way. It's super tricky there at the moment.
Well, so if you're in a normal race with 30 cars, what you'd usually see is they'd start under a safety car. So you'd have 30 cars, and the officials from race control would make you go around for 4 laps with 30 cars. It disperses the water quite fast. We've only got 8 cars on the track right now. Still quite, I guess, real in simulation. So these guys are still going to disperse the water, but you can see it's just heaving down out there. So it's not going to do a lot. It's not going to really make a big dent. But in normal racing, they'll pass it until they're happy, and then they'll let it go. And that water will be dispersed. But you've still got to factor in the aquaplaning and the force feedback on these wheels that they're playing next door.
It'll be interesting to see when we get to the race start who starts on the inside. Josh Ritchie could actually be playing a bit of a strategy card here, because typically on a grid, first place starts on the inside. Josh Ritchie, currently in P2, will start on the outside. So, is he sandbagging just a little bit so that when it comes to the race start, he's not going to be stuck on the inside and forced to go over that puddle? We could see him just rounding.
So as we come down here, what we're talking about is he would be on this left-hand side. He'd be able to take the outside line as McQueen takes way too wide. The other thing, though, that I've noticed here is tactics. Now, if someone skips that chicane, can we tell them to hold back a lap? Because there's no actual race control right now in this game. We might see it a bit later on in the championship, but we're obviously playing it that we want it fair and consistent. And if someone hits the wall, we don't want them to die or their car to die, so we've got to have a quick game and a good game and a fun game. But yeah, there's no, I guess, I had a chat with the boys earlier on, and I said, look, who's skipping the curb? Come on. They're all like, no, we play fair. So that's something we'll watch out for, as Scott McQueen just parks it on the bank as a break. So it's all about they can just reset themselves, get back in the pit, and then bank another lap, as Robert Northway now parks it into the corner.
Sometimes games have trouble replicating the exact physics of real life. But at the same time, yeah, it's going to be pretty great race. We're just coming out of qualifying here. We've got a pretty good idea of what the grid's going to look like. And you guys bring up some really interesting points on maybe it is better to start in the second position there. I don't think Josh Ritchie would be sandbagging, considering he'd have to time it to be 0.002 of a second behind. But at the same time, he may just end up coming out on top of it.
Some pretty good fast times there. And I think, once again, it's going to be those consistent guys up front that we're going to watch for. But one crash, and I hope it happens on turn 1. And it's anyone's game. We always hope it happens, and we're about to find out. So I guess the guys are just prepping themselves after qualifying, and we'll be able to take a look at that qualifying board. Championship on the line, 5,000 points for first, $3,000 for second.
Points, dollars.
2,000. It's all there, and these guys know, and they know that they're competing for money. It's some big money too. You see the same sort of money in real motorsport racing. So you know, for someone to come into it, that's pretty interesting, and it's going to be anyone's game as we're about to find out.
Before we get onto that leaderboard, if you want to earn yourself a copy of the game, make sure you jump onto social media, just like Brendan here has in the middle of a broadcast, by the way. Use the hashtag ProjectCars2NZ. Tweet at Let's Play Live HQ. Tell us if you could go to any racetrack in the world, in the universe even, where would you go? And considering I think Earth is the only racetracks in the world, probably, you've got a limited selection there compared to the rest of the universe. But here is our leaderboard.
Right. I have no idea where you're going with that one, mate. But nothing unusual there for Jordan Penny on first, Josh Ritchie on second, and Ethan Moore. It's interesting to see that Robert Northway didn't really get what he wants, but then again, like you say, Simon, it could be a bit of strategy.
Yeah, well, hanging around that outside could be the way to go. We see Scott McQueen down in P5. He'll be a little bit gutted. No doubt he'll be wanting to get further up the order. Jake Parker, no surprises, P6. Michael Robinson, P7. And unfortunately, Louis De Manila just bringing up the rear in P8.
My man, Louis. Oh, well. So we're here live at Sky Tower for Project Cars, and we are about to go live for this interesting track. It's going to be fast. There's some really tight little chicanes. The guys are getting ready to have a look over. Races.
I feel like they're just making sure that it's ready to go. We can go into the race pretty much any second right now. Let's jump into it, ladies and gentlemen, because I am super excited for this one. Will Ritchie pull off away from that second place? Will Jordan Penny still pull it right ahead?
So here we go. Start. Alton Park, Jordan Penny, Josh Ritchie off the start. Looks like Josh Ritchie's made a really bad getaway from P2 on the road, and Jordan Penny has got the whole shot into turn 1. Maybe Northway's going to take the inside from P4 into P2 off the start. Let's see, is there any carnage behind? We'll watch as the cameraman swings around. The ball made it through turn 1 nice and safely. Jordan Penny is going to take the lead into turn 2, and it looks like Northway will hold on to the P2 there, and Richie in P3.
This is the real rivalry here. Robert Northway and Jordan Penny vying for that first place, but look at how tight the whole pack is.
Yeah, interesting to see that these guys actually made it through the first set of corners relatively cleanly, but it looks like Jordan Penny already coming under some pressure from Northway in P2. A really good start from him, considering he had an average qualifying for P4. Josh Ritchie, he's dropped back down to P3 after he got bogged down on the start, and it looks like just ahead of him.
Was it Manila?
Robinson.
No, it wasn't.
Robinson ahead of Manila. He's just bogged down and he's gone out of the race. So we keep an eye on Ethan Moore here down in P4. Just up ahead, Jordan Penny is coming under a lot of pressure from Robert Northway. We'll see them cut to the leaders as they come down this long straight into the chicane.
And lots of puddles coming on the outside of the left-hand side of the chicane. Nice clean exit by all the top 4 there.
And this is one of the good things about the rain. They say in real-world racing, rain is the great equaliser, and we're seeing that here. Jordan Penny is unable to get away from Robert Northway in P2 at the moment. The top 4 split by maybe just over a second at the moment, as we're going to come towards the end of the first lap any moment here. This double apex right-hander, I talked about it earlier, it's super tough as we see Josh Ritchie getting super loose out of the second apex of that corner, and it looks like Northway is showing the nose down the inside of Penny just to let him know he's there, and it looks like Ethan Moore's trying to mount a charge on Josh Ritchie for P3. That last podium position will get you an extra 2, maybe 3 points, depending on whether or not you get that fastest lap. So at the end of lap 1, it's Jordan Penny leading Robert Northway from Josh Ritchie in P3, Ethan Moore in P4, and it looks like Robert Northway is mounting a charge on Jordan Penny for the lead. We'll get to them in a moment. Hopefully, maybe Penny, is he going to hold on to it?
We have to fire that cameraman, just on a note. Penny on the lead there. Lap 1, and it's very tight and nice here. Alton Park, some excellent racing, some very smooth and stylised racing here. Don't know where I was going with that, but you know where I was going with it. None of them are off, and we've got a nice close race. Consistent too, given the circumstances that they're in currently.
And I think this is the kind of competition Northway was looking at right from the start. Yes, Jordan Penny is competitive, but you can overtake him, right? This is what it should have looked like from the start. Now, Northway consistently has crashed in quite a lot of positions like this before. We'll see if he can hold his composure in the thunderstorms here at Alton Park.
It's interesting to see Robert Northway taking quite a lot of curb. In these conditions, you probably wouldn't want to be getting up onto that second sausage curb because it unweights the car, and your tyres aren't on the tarmac, obviously, so you're going to have less grip. So they've just got to be careful through these sort of sections where there are those big curbs through the chicanes, because if you get on them and you unsettle the car's going to get loose, and because it's wet, you're obviously going to be driving like an elephant on marbles and just spin around.
Well, all of but 1 second in the top 5 there. Penny, Northway, Ritchie, Moore and McQueen all having an excellent battle here. It's tight, and we are only 2 laps in of this race. Consistency is going to be key as they come under the bridge here, down the fastback section.
Looks like maybe Josh Ritchie got a little bit loose there out of that second double apex right-hander towards the end of the lap there. Maybe just struggling in these conditions. We're in thunderstorm conditions here at Alton Park compared to just the cloudy and wet conditions at Brands Hatch. So there's probably a lot more water on the circuit here as they head into turn 1. Don't dip a tyre into the grass. That's all I can say for these guys, because if they do that, they're going to find themselves facing the wrong way and in a spot of bother, no doubt.
Now, you've got to give it to these drivers, though. They're very so consistent. They're really finding their groove. You know, you're only 3 laps in, but they're very close to each other. And for the weather and the conditions, we've seen worse racing in the dry. So these guys are keeping up with each other in the wet with puddles. And a bit of lights flashing in the background there to try to get some manoeuvre from McQueen. Not so much of a battle at the moment, not so much blocking going on, just really... Oh!
Ethan Moore stacked it into the wall. He's just boulder wide down there at the hip, and he's going to do a big old 360 and get going again. A good recovery there, but it looks like Manila has benefited from that, and Moore is going to drop all the way down to P7. So a rookie mistake for Ethan Moore there. He threw that one away. You know, we were talking about it in qualifying. Is this the race where he's going to prove himself? And he's proven that he can't be consistent.
Well, talking about consistency, Penny out on the lead, but he's not getting away from Northway at the moment, and Richie's right there as well. So they'll be looking at trying to mount an attack at some point, but Penny, he's just really consistent. It's all of 0.5 of a second out front, but if they give him that clear air, it's going to be really hard to catch him. So they're just going to be hoping that he makes a mistake.
One thing that you've got to think about these cars as well is that because they've got a lot of downforce on them, those big wings and the front splitters, the underbody aero, what that creates is what we call dirty air. So the theory behind that being is that when you're driving along, you're punching a hole in the air in front of you. And because of that, there is lots of air that gets disturbed behind you. Now, when you're following behind, if you've got air which is going all over the place and is going over your car and it's all bumble-jumble, it's going to make the car be unstable because the air over the car is unstable. So when you get into the draft, that's the car punching a hole in the air in front of you and there's no air going over the car. So you're able to, obviously there's less resistance and you're able to get a bit of what we call a slipstream. But if you're just that little bit further back and the air's all disturbed, you can't follow and you're going to find yourself understeering. No, it's going to be even worse because you're in the wet conditions. And I think we might have seen that with Penny just out in front, Northway trying to get close, but in that dirty air is just not able to capitalise on it.
Michael Robinson real far back there on the map currently. He's going to be trying to push it. Parker. Haven't seen much of Parker this round, but he's he's staying down the bottom there, but at least he's not 6 of more. Malilla, followed by McQueen, Richie.
I think it's kind of cool how we saw Ethan Moore bomb out completely before, but he's still managing to be ahead of 2 people. There's a pretty good battle for 6th and 7th place right there. So it'll be really cool. But Josh Ritchie right now sitting in that 3rd place. And again, you guys were saying how close these top 4 to 5 races are right now. And one slip up from anyone in front of them could send 1 to 3 races completely down the pack.
Now, when we talk about damage in these cars, damage is turned on in the sense that we can see it cosmetically. Does that mean that their window wipers don't work and all of those sort of things, man?
I mean, it's super interesting because we ran into that on last week when there was a night race, and we jokingly said, hey, look, if your headlights are bumped out, you actually can't turn them on. So while the damage is cosmetic only, you will lose your window wipers. You will lose your headlights. So it's small things, but that might be enough.
Whoa, sideways there from Northway as he's pushing hard on board here with Josh Ritchie, who's just too far back to mount an attack, but one little mistake and he'll be able to mount that attack. Best lap out of him.
Jordan Penny, it looks like he's just back to his old ways, really, isn't he? He's out to a 2-second lead now as we see Robert Northway getting super wide out of turn 1 there, uncharacteristically out of shape. And Josh Ritchie is going to try and slip it around the outside. Not a place you'd typically pass, but if he can stay side by side with Northway, is he going to put him onto the grass? Or he's got to be careful there. You don't want to be having a bit of argy-bargy down the front straight. And this is going to put Josh Ritchie down to the inside when it comes to the sweeper. Is he going to relinquish the spot? Let's watch. He's just going to slot back in behind, maybe get the up and under, go around the outside, use some of that camber to his advantage, and maybe get a good exit out of here. But it looks like Northway, he's just managed to hold on as he gets a little bit loose. Is that going to give Ritchie another opportunity? You don't want to be going side by side through the chicane here. Surely not. Josh Ritchie, a nice pass there on Robert Northway. Northway will be disappointed that he didn't hold on to that. And it all stemmed from that mistake that he made at the end of that last lap. Oh, it looks like he's even going to try and go on the grass here to try and get it back on Josh Ritchie. They're going to try again here at the chicane. Northway, he's not giving up, but he's still looking really loose out there in that Janetta. Just maybe cooking those tyres a little bit. The pressure's coming up too much on that car, and it's just allowing Josh Ritchie to get out in front.
It's something that the guys did say earlier on, is after a few laps, the tyres, the PSI is just going straight out there, and it's a bit of a dog to handle, was their words, I think, as it comes in. But, consistent little battle here going on between Ritchie and Northway. Northway just pushes it a bit wide there and gives Ritchie that bit of a gap there. It's exactly what he wants. Penny, again, every race. I think next week we reverse grid just to test Penny up a bit. Sideways again from Ritchie there.
Yeah, and we're seeing here with Northway, again, he's dropping back from Ritchie, and I think this is that dirty air that we were talking about earlier. He's turning into the corner, and the car is just understeering massively. So we come through turn 1 here. Again, he's just really wide of the apex there. Obviously, you don't want to get too close to that apex because there's that massive puddle on the inside, but still, he's just losing time hand over fist here. And maybe this is going to give Ritchie the opportunity that he needs to maybe try and bridge that 4-second gap that Penny has got out front, as we see Northway get super loose out of turn 2 there. And just behind him, Scott McQueen, lightning in the thunder. Maybe he's going to be able to mount a charge and get up into P3 onto that podium.
Yeah, everyone's shaking their head at you for that one. Come on. I mean, yeah, Scott McQueen has done pretty well so far. And again, I think he's done fantastically well considering the wet weather conditions. I mean, everyone has so far, but Scott sitting here in P4 looking to come and take these front runners. I mean, Northway slipping a little bit behind. Richie has shown the guts to go for those risky overtakes, and he's done it. Now, question is, will Scott McQueen go for the same kind of overtakes against Robert Northway?
Well, Northway is definitely dropping back from Richie, and I think as we look at the last lap, Northway did a 1:54.6 versus a 1:53.2 by McQueen. So McQueen is a whole second and a half quicker than Northway on that last lap, albeit Northway was caught up in that bit of a battle that he had going with Josh Ritchie. But just for reference, here's a little bit of a track fact for you. The world record on this circuit in dry conditions is a 1:39.440. In the wet, we're way slower. We're some, 12, 13 seconds slower. A 1:52 being the fastest time we see Michael Robertson loop it from P8. Obviously,
He's just
last
really not having fun today out on that track.
But that's the one thing he said he wanted to do when he came in today, was have fun and not come last. Unfortunately, he's not doing either of those things.
Well, he might just be having fun.
Oh, maybe he is having fun, but you said he didn't look like he was having fun.
Yeah.
In any case, though, it's an insurmountable distance that he's that far behind. I mean, you're praying that someone like Louis Di Manila or Jake Parker just totals their car so you can come and catch up and not come last.
Yeah, Robinson's a good 11 seconds slower than Penier, so he's just hemorrhaging time down there in P8. And while he may be having fun, it's not going to do him any favours in terms of his championship chase. If we watch Robert Northway in P3, looks like maybe a good lap that last time, a 10th quicker than McQueen. So McQueen is obviously just dropping back there. And one of the things that we've got to note too, that first race that we watched, the lap times were sub-minute. We're now sub 2 minutes for this race, so we're basically doubling the length of the race versus race one. While they were both 20 laps, it's obviously the track is a lot larger here at Alton Park. So Robert Northway currently sitting in P3. That margin between him and Josh Ritchie in P2 has stabilised a little bit, just out to 2 seconds between the pair of them. And it looks like Penne maybe just holding on to just under 4 seconds margin over Ritchie. So at the moment, no major changes as we see Robert Northway go for a skate out through the grass. And is that going to give McQueen the opportunity, I should say, that he needs to maybe get up onto that podium?
He's just too far back at this moment, but you could see it. He hit the puddle pushed him off, just lost all of that traction. So very realistic, these games, as far as replicating the real life of motorsport, or the real characteristics of motorsport in these tracks.
Like you said a little bit earlier, these puddles, if you drive through them, they will sort of move around and change the characteristics. So if we had, say, 50 cars out onto the track and we were going through those puddles, the puddles would disperse and the water would disappear, and you maybe have a bit of a dry line forming. In these conditions, obviously not, because it's a thunderstorm and we've got constant rain the entire way through. Akin to what we had at Pukekohe over the weekend, Brendan.
Yeah, Pukekohe for us, it was the grand final of the New Zealand Drifting Championship. Someone who's really good in the rain, supercar champion Shane Gisbergen. You watch him when he's racing, he is the king. Bathurst, in the rain, anywhere he goes, if it's raining, you're likely to see Shane Gisbergen. So he had his first taste at Pukekohe Park Raceway in the weekend, and I think he did a 190 side-by-side with Cole Armstrong, and lost out. Cole Armstrong went on to win the championship and the New Zealand title this year, so well done to Cole Armstrong and Liam Burke, taking out that title this weekend for the Link ECU D1NZ National Drifting Championship. So that's it, we break for that right now. And but I'd love to see Shane actually have a go at saying like this. He is an avid gamer, and he does play a lot of gaming, various platforms among project cars as well. As we're on a lap right now with Jordan Penne, watching it, his fluid style. He's the king of fluidity and just being textbook racing. So, he's got clean air. He's just got to focus. And he's really come from nowhere. I was talking to the boys earlier in the night, and they said, Josh Ritchie. They were all saying, Josh Ritchie's got this. But Penne doesn't disappoint. Next week we're going to see, like I said last week, him with endorsements. He'll be wearing Vodafone caps, and who knows what else.
Well, I mean, it's also on the flip side as well. Coming into this, we all sat here and said, Robert Northway, world leader in a lot of these hot laps, and then suddenly he hasn't done terribly, but he's probably done about equal to Josh Ritchie around on the leaderboards. But Jordan Penne, like you said, has just come out of nowhere and wowed absolutely everyone.
Look, if you guys are at home and you're watching on Sky TV, what does somebody do to get into something like this? Now, obviously they go buy the game Project Cars, but you can get yourself a setup as well. Can you play on PC? How do you play it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's on a few different consoles. You can play it on PlayStation, you can play it on PC, and you can just buy the game, play on controller. I know a few racers that do. Most commonly, they'll race in the Sims if they want to take it to the top level. However, I know one of the fastest eSports racers in the world, Simon Bishop, played on a controller in the GT Sport Championship last year. I mean, he practiced for the wheel as well, for the live event, but qualified on a controller. So
same as I think it's Louis qualified on the controller as well. He was actually borrowing his friend's game, going over to his friend's house to qualify in the top 8 on that track Brands Hatch Indy that we saw earlier on, as we're on board with Ethan Moore at the moment. So another thing on this is correct me if I'm wrong, is e-gaming, or I guess Sims and these type of, you guys have everything from Tekken to Warcraft, to what's the League of Legends, we have high school leagues. Am I referring to this correctly?
Yes. You said the names of the video games right. Yes. I mean, Warcraft would be fun to jump back to, but...
There's big money involved in this now. Now, these guys are obviously in New Zealand vying for 5,000, but you've got the GT Academy. These guys can go on to be real race car drivers in real race car teams. And you're talking big money. We're filling stadiums with this now. Last year, the prize was $24 million.
$24 million, so bigger than a lot of traditional sports in their biggest prizes. So esports is certainly up there. One of the great things I love about the motorsports version of it, though, is the translation between your real-world traditional racing and then esports simulation racing. It's very similar. There's a lot of crossover.
I get fascinated on the actual things that they pick up, like the actual apex point markers. Now, if you watch when they come for a certain apex in a track, and in New Zealand, they've actually got, I think it's Ruapuna on Project Cars as well. We won't see it in this championship, but the apex markers are in the exact same position that you'd actually see on the track. So if you ever want to go race a real racetrack, and you see right there on your right, those are the apex markers. Well, if you went to this racetrack, that's exactly where they'll be. The curbs are exactly the same. So if you ever want to experience what it's like to be out on these tracks, get Project Cars 2 and you can have a jam at it.
If you want to take it that one step further, get the VR set as well, because that is just another level.
It is. I've actually had a go with VR, and I get motion sickness. So after the game, I was all over the place. But it was a real epic experience to sit there, and you just turn your head, you look up, you look down, and you're actually having a real race. Next week, we should put these guys on VR. It would be hilarious.
That'd be fantastic. I feel like there won't be any issues with that whatsoever. But let's get back to the race here. And not too much has changed. There hasn't been too many fantastic battles going on. I think the tightest one is probably for that P2 spot, Richie and Robert Northway. But Richie, I feel, even still, has solidified himself in that position. Featured racer Scott McQueen as well, still coming up the pack a little bit. And again, I've been saying this over the night, is fourth place is just a little bit below where he wants to be. I feel like he can break into that top 3 and really wow a lot of people, right? I mean, no one says, oh yeah, I think Scott McQueen is going to take this race out. It's always the Pennays, the Northways, even the Richies. And Paul McQueen here, sitting in fourth place, has the potential to break into that.
I guess the thing here is what the drivers don't know is what comes next week. What are the tricks? Well, you know, we've got fun and we've got rain. What's going to come next week? Is it going to be a handicapped race, a reverse order, a under safety car? All those different things. A blizzard, I hear from race control.
Imagine if we just put them in a blizzard, though. How cruel would that be?
Well, that's possible. You know, that's what this game allows. You can race in the snow. You can race in the baking desert. You know, it doesn't matter where you're racing in the world. Like, you can have Dubai in the snow. Obviously, that's sort of stretching. Oh, and it looks like maybe Northway spun out of P3. Some drama up ahead, and McQueen is going to take P3 onto the podium as our cameraman has no idea what he's doing. Robert Northway,
he can't believe it either.
He's just dropped. Bunch of time.
We've said this time and time again, and he's said it to himself. He goes, I just don't know what happens. I'm one of the world's best, but I get into these studios and I just chuck it away.
Well, this is actually one thing that we talk about in real-world racing a lot is just losing concentration and focus. This race is twice the distance of the Brands Hatch race. We've just reached effectively what would have been the race finish for Brands Hatch, and now Northway perhaps a little bit distracted. He might have thought that the puddle had moved out of the way down at turn 1, and he's just hit it, and it's just sent him around into a spin. So he's lost a handful of time, and he's a good 5 seconds behind McQueen in P3 now. So McQueen up into the podium, and he's got a good handful of points to his name if he can finish there.
Yeah, Brendan, I want to actually bring up what you said, right? When Northway says something happens when he just comes into the studio and he just throws it away. It's because it's a different scenario, right? A lot of these racers will sit at home and they'll do lap after lap after lap. But that's cool. You can get some great lap times. How many of those did he do? 20 laps in a row. Probably did it in this weather, so that's fair. But did he do it with other racers on the track? At least
he says he actually does race, though, with other racers. He's actually really good at racing. I think it must be good, man. He comes into these studios and he just it's the pressure. And we do see it. We do see it in, as you have, I guess, development drivers coming through into pro amateur or pro sports and coming into pro. It's a big thing. And we're not going to see it here, obviously, because it's not real life. But you've got thousands of people standing on the sideline. The nerves get you. You know, they have to go to motorsport development seminars and really learn how to, I guess, take in some of these attributes that the pressures that you have. You've got a full pit crew there, and you know you do feel the pressures of actually letting your team down, letting your family down, time and time again. But the biggest thing that we stress to our drivers and we stress to everybody else is don't give up, keep on going. If you want to try to do something, because we see the replay there, went out on the rumble strips, and I guess the thing is on those rumble strips when they're wet, like we pointed out earlier, is they're slippery as hell. So he's just put it down, he's put the pedal down, and he's just gone around. Unfortunate for him, but fortunate for McQueen. It's going to be a really tight game to try to catch up to Penne, but you know we're only 12 laps into 20.
And to your point about Northway just sort of being out of kilter, I guess, when he comes to the studio, one thing that you've got to bear in mind is that in the sim racing industry, there's a lot of variety in terms of what sort of gear you can have, right? So Logitech produce a G25, a G27, and a G29. Obviously different versions of a racing wheel, right? There's a good chance that some of these guys will be racing with that steering wheel, and that's what they're used to at home. The button configurations are different. Here, they're running a completely different steering wheel. So you've got to think maybe for Robert or for any one of these other guys, once they get into the racing seat here, they may be thinking, well, you know, I'm not so comfortable in this. Like, you know, we watched it when these guys rocked up. They sat in the seat and they went, oh, this isn't comfortable. Oh, what's all this all about?
Prime example, Louis de Manila, the fastest Filipino, my favourite, even though he's sitting in sixth position right now, has cushions galore around him right now.
He has many cushions.
The bucket seat is too big for him. So he's got 3 you can see right now. Look at that cushion behind his head. Oh, and he picks up a spot. That's thanks to me. Thanks, James Parker. Was it Parker that just spun out?
Yeah, it was Parker just spinning out a P5 there. So Louis de Manila, the fastest Filipino, gets into the top 5 now.
Look at the little smile on his face. Ooh, he picked up a position, he says.
It's going to be the best results he's had all of the 3 weeks we've been into this. And look at that. It's just easy enough for him to slide on by.
He got 4th position in the race before, so he's doing pretty good. He's going to pick up some championship points, which is going to push him off that back end and top end. So he's just going to be consistent. Hopefully, what he'll be hoping for right now is Robert Northway to make another mistake. So,
which is not the rarest thing in the world. It happens probably about once per track.
The cool thing to see with Robert Northway is he's a fast driver, and when he makes a mistake, he doesn't have the same characteristics that some of these drivers have, and it lets him, I guess it affects him mentally. He jumps straight back in there and he climbs his way back up to those positions, and you see it with Penne as well. I'm definitely interested to delve a bit more into actually Penne's racing history over the next few weeks and see how he practices, where he practices, and why is he so consistent.
Ethan Moore's just decided to bowl a wide down at turn 2 there. He's just going way out into the grass, maybe doing a bit of dirt track racing after this. Well, Rallycross is obviously an option in this game too. There's lots of disciplines. GT4 is not the only discipline that you can race in. GT3, I know that there's V8 supercars in this game too. The variety of racing machinery in Project Cars is basically limitless. There's cars from the 1960s through to basically now in terms of like...
It's the world's oyster as far as gaming goes, you know. It's almost like social media at the moment. People get addicted to social media, or people get addicted to gaming. I just heard on the radio this morning, there's this new one, you're really into the gaming, it's called Fortnite or something, and they were talking on the radio that people's love lives and relationships and marriages are going down the gurgler because partners just want to watch gaming all the time, which isn't, I guess, a bad thing. Would you rather them out with the boys drinking booze all night or inside gaming and being at home with you?
Well, I mean, while there's some truth to what some of these people are claiming, I think it's just wildly blown out of proportion. I mean, you can get addicted to anything, really. And I think it's just that it's so easy and accessible for gaming. But I think it's a lot more social than people make it out to be. Is that, like you said, he could be out getting boozed with the boys, but he could also be on Fortnite dropping tilted towers with the boys as well. And that is actually quite good. You're still getting that social interaction. And it's the same for any multiplayer game as well.
I think a cool thing to point out as well is in something like this, you're investing your time, and you actually see it in real race car drivers investing their time. Real drifters are actually playing the drift game, investing their time, drifting on the tracks that they're going to be drifting on. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, next week we will not have that cameraman on our team.
He's fired.
Yeah, he's fired. That's it. So we're on board now with Jake Parker, further back down the field in 6th position. At 1:54 is his time on the last lap.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of Jake Parker so far, especially tonight. He's about where we'd expect him to be, right? Like, not right at the bottom of the pack, but still respectable 6th position. If he wants to impress pretty much all of us here, he's going to have to start stepping something up. Maybe that's the seat time that you've been talking about so much and praising it as the holy grail of how you get better at racing.
So we're going to go on board here with Robert Northway in a moment. He's just behind Louis De Manila in P4. The last lap by Northway was a 2-minute 1 second around this 17-turn Alton Park circuit. So it looks like Northway might have just gone for a wee tour of the tyre barrier somewhere around the circuit. So Louis was under a lot of pressure there on lap 13, and maybe Northway is just pushing a little bit too hard, trying too hard to get back into P4 there. So perhaps De Manila, he's in the top 4 now. He's up for his equal best.
Again, he was 4th position in the first race, and like he said, he goes, I've been practicing. You know, he's a student, and he's got to study, and he's got to be at university a lot. But he said to us this week, he goes, I've been practicing. This is one of my runs, and consistency's key. He's still there. He's beating one of the world's fastest at the moment. His car looks like well, we won't go there, but, you know, as far as it goes, he's just got to try to catch up to I was going to say commentators' curse, catch up to Louis, but you know, very sporadic and spread out race here, unfortunately for this one. But in saying that, it's a lot longer, and I guess a few of these drivers are just losing concentration.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that here with Robert Northway. He's just understeering through a lot of these corners, coming into the corner, missing his apex, and then finding himself a wee bit out wide, and then getting a lot of oversteer. So this car is naturally set up to be quite loose, but in these conditions, obviously, you're going to have a bit of understeer and then a bit of oversteer on the exit of the corner. So we're on board here with Robert Northway. We'll stay on board with him for the next lap as we see him try and hunt down Louis De Manila in P4. So Louis obviously not too far out in front. Louis's been consistent this race, and that has been what has been really good for him to get up into P4. He's not made too many mistakes, while the other guys around him have capitulated. Northway, for one, obviously has found the tyre wall at some point along these 15 laps. So we're going to head over this blind crest here. It looks like that margin between he and Louis De Manila is coming down now, just 8 tenths between the two. Northway's last lap was a 1:54.1. Manila's was
he's
1:53.
Going to do it. He's going to do it. I thought he might do it. Someone had to do it. Cut the corner to try to get that advantage. But he's cut the corner, but he hasn't done it in a cheekingly way as well, which is quite good to see. He hasn't just fired straight through that chicane to pass Louis and make up the ground. So he actually did slow down and let Louis pass. So it's a good racing there by Robert.
Yeah, and that's all about racing etiquette, isn't it, at the end of the day? Like, we talk about that in the real racing world. There have been some pretty harrowing sort of dive bombs where people have tried to send it down the inside, maybe gained a little bit of an advantage.
Maybe just
a little bit. Like,
we've seen it in supercars a lot.
Yeah, definitely. You see it at places like the Gold Coast where they cut the chicane. As long as you're not making a gain in terms of the time compared to the next guy in front, the stewards aren't going to penalise you so much.
So stewards and race control and marshals and all those things are interesting points. Now, if you're watching at home and you're wondering, well, how can I get involved with motorsport? Well, simply put, volunteer. You can actually sit on the side of the track right now and you can wave a flag. It's all volunteer-based New Zealand motorsport. So you can get to the track. There's tracks all around New Zealand, depending where you're based. Simon knows all about that.
Yeah, so head on to Google now and look up the Motorsport Club. They are one of Auckland's biggest groups who are always looking for volunteers. You can come down to Hampton Downs, go down to Pukekohe Park as well, to New Zealand's best motor racing facility. So yeah, that's the Motorsport Club. Just head over to their Facebook page as well. Get in touch with them. And it looks like Robert Northway did exactly what I told him not to. He dipped that wheel onto the grass and it's just sent him a little bit loose. So he's losing a bit of time here. He's only got 4 laps to catch down Louis De Manila in P4 there to hopefully get maybe 2 or 3 more points back on these guys, and it's going to be crucial if he wants to be a championship contender come the end of this season.
Yeah, once more as well, props to Louis for being so consistent throughout this race. I mean, I'm sure I said the exact same things before he crashed out in the first race, but at the same time, he is holding his position right now, and it's been against formidable opponents, right? Robert Northway is no joke. He won the first race.
We're seeing 152s, you know, you're seeing 153s, 155s from McQueen. So you're seeing slower times, so he is doing faster times, but I'd say he's just having slip-ups here and there that it's just crucifying him.
Be good to see Josh Ritchie as well, sitting up in that second place position. Oh, take a look at the crowd. They're getting a few photos. Josh Ritchie here trying to catch up to Jordan Penne, but simply too far behind. So he's looking to just secure that P2, earn those championship points, and at the same time, maybe do a little praying to see if Penne will spin out, but you don't want to count on that one.
I think he's just going to be trying to keep it consistent. He knows that there's championship and there's money on the line and points count. And anything, we saw, I think it was a 7-point difference. So on the weekend, we crowned our champion for the New Zealand Drifting Championship, and 7 points. So, you know, you're talking 25 points difference in a race win. So between Cole Armstrong and Darren Kelly, so the Nissan-backed R35 GTR and the V-Energy R34, you had 7 points difference. So right now, 7 points difference is $5,000. So Josh Ritchie just has to be consistent, because at the end of the race, those 1 points will add up for Robert Northway, because he's faster than that, and he's going to need to step his game up in the tail end of this championship. But Josh Ritchie and Penne, that's the ones that we're going to have to watch about. Who's going to get that $5,000?
And also don't forget as well, like you're talking about the small points margins that can be the difference between thousands of dollars. As well, you get a single point for getting the fastest lap of the race, which will make all the difference as we get to the later ends of the competition. So it very much could be that you got the fastest lap on one race and you earn a few $1,000s more than the person below you.
Yeah, we'll find out what that fastest lap is of this race from the Star Insurance Specialist a bit later on. And I'd say it won't be anywhere near as fast as what we saw at Brains, but this one, obviously, a bit of an interesting race. You know, there's definitely... It's not about going as fast as you can and having that battle. It's more about just being consistent, having your focus on the game, and watching out for those puddles and watching out for the slipperiness on the track and those rumble strips that are also very slippery.
Definitely, and keeping off those valley longer curbs is crucial, because basically when you go over them, your tyre has got a very minimal contact patch, so you're prone to spinning up those rear wheels. This car obviously pushing close to 400 horsepower, so you don't want to be pushing too hard. You know, despite the traction control and all the aids that these cars do have, it's no match when you head over these rumble curbs, as we see Jordan Penne perhaps taking a bit of an alternative racing line, just going a little bit wide on the exit there. So Penne currently up to a 10-second lead over Josh Ritchie, and Josh Ritchie before wasn't really, I'd say, a man of composure. He's sort of a little bit frustration, maybe just wondering, you know, how can I catch up to Jordan? But Jordan is just looking so good out front at the moment.
And he was always so humble as well and composed. When we've interviewed him quite a few times, I believe it's 4 in total, and he's always so humble. He's sitting there, not shaky like we saw Robert Northway, who seemed kind of surprised that he won the race. Jordan Penne just gets onto the track and does his thing and doesn't worry too much about emotions.
He's got little emotion. Like you say, emotion. He's got little emotion. I think that might be a real key thing for him here. He's not getting emotional about anything. He's just getting out there and he's getting the job done. You know, you see it with champions of New Zealand like Gaz White or Van Gisbergen and McLaughlin. You know, it's just keep the emotion off the racetrack and just do your job.
Well, don't forget too that Jordan Penne at 32 years old is one of our oldest competitors.
Right.
You know, it's still accessible though for these guys. So for someone like Jordan, he's obviously got the laps under his belt. He's been video gaming for quite a few years. Obviously, Project Cars being fairly new in the scope of simulation racing, but obviously he's got that track time under his belt. So for guys like Josh Ritchie and perhaps Robert Northway, who are relatively new to racing, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, Jordan's got the legs on them.
You gotta look at. We looked at. I think it was Scott McQueen's favourite game, and you looked at the graphics, you know, of Need for Speed, and then you look, and then you look at how far it's come since we were kids and we were playing that to now. You know, you've got rain crossing over your screen, you've got rain on the windows. You know, it's phenomenal actually the amount of energy and time that goes into this. We've seen New Zealand's own Mad Mike. He's been in one of these games. You know, I guess once you make it once you make your cars into a car game, you've almost become immortal, you know, because it's there forever.
Definitely. And I think simulations as a whole are sort of getting to the point now where it's no longer a video game. When people look at things like Project Cars, iRacing, Assetto Corsa, R-Factor, and those types of simulations, it's the closest thing that you can get to basically being in a race car. So these simulations now are being used by professionals. You know, guys like Brendan Hartley, Richie Stanaway, both used to be simulation drivers for like Mercedes and Williams.
Yep.
So it's a career path for guys who perhaps, you know, want to be a development driver.
Yeah. So kids, if you're sitting at home and you're watching this and mum says, stop playing video games, there's actually somewhere you could go with it. You know, there's lots of money on the line. So I say, Mum, there's actually somewhere I can go with it. Look, these guys get $5,000 as we come around the front straight on the last lap coming up. It's Jordan Penne. It's all been about Jordan Penne this whole championship. Louis de Manila is going to take him out next week. I've given him $50, but this week it is all about him. Our championship leader here, live from Sky Tower for the Project Cars, brought to you by Let's Play Live, Star Insurance Specialist, Logitech. He's a bit of a champion already, isn't he? He's made his mark.
He's building himself a dynasty right now. He's becoming a living legend in this series alone. And the fact that we were all so shocked and surprised that he didn't win a single race just shows how far ahead of everyone else this guy is right now. So we'll follow him as we go into the final lap, and it's quite likely, in fact, almost impossible, that he doesn't just get first place here. It's going to be all about whether Richie and McQueen can just hold their positions and lock in that podium.
Well, don't put the mockers on him just yet. We've still got half a lap to go here. Jordan Penne obviously out to a 12-second lead with McQueen another 14 seconds back. There might be a bit of a battle brewing at the back, and we'll watch that as we come to the final lap. But Jordan Penne, he's just been in a class of his own. This guy, it doesn't matter if it's hot, it doesn't matter if it's cold, it doesn't matter if it's wet or if it's dry. This guy just knows how to muscle this car around the circuit. And I guess it's a little bit surprising that we've seen guys like Robert Northway, who hold lap records in this car on this circuit, not performing. So we're going to watch Jordan Penne come around the penultimate set of corners now. There's a bit of traffic up ahead of him. It's not going to make that big of a difference though. Moore and Robinson, they're out of this, down in 7th and 8th. But here we go, Jordan Penne, the final lap, 13 seconds out in front.
Well, yeah, it's one of the staple tracks of the British Touring Car Championships. Jordan Penne comes in, lap 20. It's been about Jordan Penne the whole time. Crosses the line, takes first position, 1.52. We see him there take off the headphones, a bit of relief, 25 points, hands on the head. Now we get some emotion from him. Clearly, it was quite taxing on him, the concentration. They get a bit of a break now, 20 laps. As we go down the championship order, Richie will be bringing it home. Still not across the line?
Richie, I believe, is across the line. This is now McQueen coming up in P3, is just about to do the exact same thing, lock in that podium right there. And also following up behind them, I believe Manila is just going to come up and take out that P4.
Yeah, there's still just a fraction of a second between the two, as it looks like Manila is just going to hold on to P4 perhaps. We're going to come through the final corner here. Can he hold on to it? There's been a bit of drama here. It's not over until the fat lady sings, but it looks like Manila is going to come across the line and take out P4 as Northway just puts those wheels into the grass again. This guy has got no fear.
What a fantastic result for the fastest Filipino, though. Great to see 2 pole positions for Manila, and he will be smiles. He will be smile ear to ear. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see into his seat. Robert Northway, he's not going to be happy about those results, as his car looks a lot worse for wear. As we see the rest, it's time to chill out, straight on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the good thing about being in a simulation. You can text in the driver's seat just after parking up. I think his car is still auto-driving around the track as well as he finishes up.
Second.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the magic of eSports simulation racing. So there you have it, guys. Another finish in first place by Jordan Penne. Josh Ritchie very consistently coming up, getting that P2. But props to Scott McQueen and Louis de Manila for, I've got to say, exceeding the expectations on those 2 races.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like we say every week, the people who get the seat time, that they do the practice and they get out there and they actually give it a go, they're going to get the results. And this week, Louis came in and he said one thing. He said, I've been practicing. And because of that, he's got his 4th position of both races. He's picked up really crucial championship points, and he's bumped himself away from the likes of Jack Parker and so forth. So we have a quick look.
Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Of course, we were saying Jordan Penne up there in the first place position, Josh Ritchie, Scott McQueen, and Louis. We've all talked about them already. Robert Northway, I think, is the big one to talk about. P5, not the result he was looking for. And then the bottom three, it's not too much different to what we've seen before. Jake Parker, Ethan Moore, and then Michael Robinson down there in 8th position. So, guys, anything standing out there for you? I mean, for me, it's the Scott McQueen and the Louis de Manila. Anything else that's a little more standout for you?
I think the cool thing to look at this championship is testing the drivers. You know, right now we're looking at it and we're at a really tight circuit, and we had good battles, and then we had a really wide open track, and it's testing their skill and how they actually strategize and actually how they've tested themselves in training.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I know we're going to be having an interview with Scott McQueen, so it's going to be great to finally interview someone that's not Jordan Penne. I mean, we got Robert Northway. Let's get another racer in. Let's see how Scott McQueen is feeling. Ka-chow!
Hey Scott, congratulations on the 3rd place finish. That's the 3rd podium finish for you. How are you feeling with today's performance?
I was pretty happy to get the 3rd in Alton, especially because I definitely wasn't out on the pace compared to sort of Jordan and Josh. A bit disappointed with the first race, but that's what happens, I guess.
Yeah, well, today, with the second race particularly, it was quite long, right? It was a 40-minute race. And how do you feel that compares to the shorter races? And how do you feel going into those races, like you perform compared to the shorter ones?
It's pretty tiring, actually. It's pretty much everyone makes mistakes, so it's kind of just try not to be that person that makes the big mistake, and you should do pretty well.
Well, you're reasonably consistent, you know, since about halfway through the race, you managed to hold 3rd position and you kept that the whole way, so congratulations on that. Do you feel like your positioning tonight over previous weeks, you know, you did pretty well tonight, gives you an advantage, you know, going forward? Do you feel like you're confident going forward into the next weeks? And who do you think are the biggest threats, you know, going forward as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I know, especially on the dry tracks, that I've got the pace to keep up with Jordan and Josh. I just got to try and stay out of trouble. I think Josh is definitely my biggest competition, and Rob, when he actually keeps it on the track.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rob's spinning out there, but did secure you a reasonable position. And so congratulations tonight, and good luck in the weeks to come.
That was a big smile. He was happy with his finish tonight. I want to touch on what he said in that, is that it's tiring. I mean, that's a long race, and it's also the second race of the night. So stamina is a big thing for these guys.
Well, 40 minutes, you know, even in a race car, just sitting in a simulator and concentrating and trying to just focus your energy on that. You saw it with Penne. He was just stoked to be finished.
Yes. Like he was actually just, he got his arms up behind him, almost just relaxing as much as he possibly can. So when even Jordan Penne is showing emotion, showing relief when the race is finished, you know it's a long one, and the races are going to be incredibly tired after that. So I believe we're going to have the leaderboard showing up pretty soon, showing all of the championship points over the series so far. I think we all know who's going to be sitting at the top. Even though he didn't win one of the races tonight, he's still got second, still earned a lot of points. There he is, Jordan Penne, right at the top, 143 points.
That's right, the Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship. Josh Ritchie in second, Robert Northway in third, and Scott McQueen in fourth. Not really too much surprises going on there, Simon.
No, not too many in terms of the change-up in the points, but it could be crucial when it comes to those fastest laps. It looks like Ethan Moore and Louis de Manila only have points separating those two. Michael Robinson and Jake Parker rounding up the rear on 40 points apiece. So, Jordan Penne,
fastest
41
laps.
Points ahead of Josh Ritchie. That's basically 2 wins. So he's got such a big margin between these two. So guys like Josh Ritchie, Robert Northway, they're going to have to really pick up their game and hope that Jordan maybe runs into a bit of trouble come some of these next rounds. And I know that coming up, we're going to be heading to Germany, as I understand it, and the Nordschleife. So that could be a turning point in this season.
Yeah, very exciting as well. And I want to point out that Jordan Penne, he got Star Insurance fastest lap in the first race. He picked it up in the second race as well. As you can see, he had 3 of those. whereas before the night began, he had only 1. And picking that up with a 1 minute 51.622, right down there at the bottom of your screen. So he will earn a few extra points in total, 2 extra points, in fact, over the whole night for both of those ones. So the fact that we saw, I think it was 5th and 6th place, there was 1 point between them. That could be the difference if you pick up one of those fastest laps. So, guys, before we finish for tonight, I want to get your final thoughts and just one sentence, Brendan, and we'll close out the show. So, what stood out for you tonight?
Well, I started with Louis, so I'm going to end in Louis, and consistency is key, guys, because the racers watch this after the race. They'll watch the replays, so consistency, seat time. Get your seat time like Louis did, and you're going to bump those scores up. So, Louis, I look forward to seeing him race next week.
Okay, and Simon, for you, final thoughts.
I think what was actually really fascinating for me was just how the race sort of played out at Brands Hatch. We saw a circuit which was only basically 1.9 kilometers long, kept the qualifying super tight. We had the changeable conditions come into it, and that really spiced up the racing. And I think maybe moving forward, that's what we should be looking at, these short, sharp races, which are proving to be super successful at the moment. So Brands Hatch, that was definitely a favorite for me.
All right, some really exciting stuff, and of course, more exciting stuff next week. But before we go, everyone, make sure you jump onto that social media buzz on that Twitter and tweet at Let's Play Live HQ with the hashtag ProjectCars2NZ, so that you can go in the draw to win a copy of the game itself for PS4, thanks to Bandai Namco. Just ask us, well, don't ask us, we're asking you. Answer the question. If you could go to any racetrack in the whole world, where would you go? So that's all for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for the Star Insurance Specialist Project Cars 2 New Zealand Championship. We'll be back again at the same time next week, and we will see you then.
This Let's Play Live presentation was brought to you by Star Insurance Specialists, New Zealand's leading niche vehicle insurance provider. SKYCITY, world-class entertainment. Logitech G, gaming with science. And Samsung, redefine the game.